Okay, start recording. Three, two, and one. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek Show. I'm your host Ben, and I'm joined with my fellow co-host Rex. Don't really have a ton to talk about because it is the international break period going on, and unfortunately, well, that means we have to talk a little bit about USA Soccer. And we do well. I guess we do have a lot to say. It's not all great. So I guess we're gonna talk a little bit about that. But Rex, good to see you again, man.
Yeah, good to be back. And there's a lot of us to dive into with this USA team. A lot of questions that I think need to be answered. Hopefully today against Saudi Arabia, maybe. But yeah, we'll delve into that. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean there there really is, and frankly, it's not just us in Group B that's having that's having some issues. So that's kind of going to lead into basically my story of the week, and that is our group in the World Cup is an absolute mess right now. Wales got relegated in their Nations League. I guess they're in the second one, so Nations League B. And England got relegated in the Nations League A group. And then out of nowhere, Iran beat a pretty strong Uruguay team. So I mean that featured Valverde, Darwin Nunez, and Suarez. So I don't really know what to think all of a sudden going into this, but I guess that's what makes it fun. The unknown about it. So, uh, what did you go with, Rex?
Well, I'm going into USA striker territory here because we were all kind of surprised when Ferreira started. I mean, it's crazy because like a year ago, about a little bit more, like last summer, we kind of thought, hey, we have three or four really solid strikers, and now it kind of seems like we might not have any. And I mean, PFOC is playing really well so far, and he's in the top league. He's in the Bundesliga, and Berhalter didn't select him, so we're going to talk about that later. But I'm just kind of perplexed and hoping maybe PFOC is already in his mind for the World Cup and he just wanted to get a look at other strikers. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, how can we go from three or four? I mean, we had like Hoppy and DK and now it seems like we don't have any. So that's frustrating to me. And also like just USA and the center back pairing too. We're going to talk about that as well. I just don't know. I don't know who to play. Maybe we'll talk about like bringing in some people like Brooks or Ream. I don't know though. Just for me, it was just USA question marks all over the place. I'm starting to get a little worried, and World Cup's coming up in like a month and a half.
I mean,
So
it's possible like that. I mean, it seems everyone's kind of struggling with the way the congestion schedule is. People are dealing with injuries. You don't know some coaches don't know if they should still do they should pick these last two games to basically do trial runs still, or to try to see how can certain players play together in a team, try to get cohesion.
mm,
Just there were a lot of weird results, frankly, through this week, and not just with us. I mean, France did not do well in this past Nations League round, and they frankly are the reigning champions of that
yeah,
thing. Um, and France didn't necessarily have the best
Germany
Euros
lost to
as
Hungary
well,
too.
right? Yeah, Germany apparently hasn't won, I think, in 6 games now. A couple of draws in there maybe. And Spain is looking kind of shaky. They're all of a sudden the two teams that I guess maybe people were concerned about a couple years ago, Argentina and Brazil, might be 1 and 2 when it comes to favorites now with the way
Yeah,
that they're playing. So we'll try to do really cover it all. To be honest, we're gonna focus mostly on USA, but we'll touch a little bit what happened in Nations League, mostly on England, obviously since they're in our group, and we'll try to get in some of the other results, and maybe if there's still time, try to maybe talk a little preview for the upcoming weeks. EPL does start back up again, and we have a pretty good weekend ahead of us with the Manchester
oh
Derby, and
yeah,
there's maybe a North London Derby that starts things up as well. So I think
gosh,
that's
yeah,
the early game too.
it
So
is. Yeah, yeah, 7:30.
what a way to wake up. So
Mm-hmm.
that said, we'll get started with USA Japan, and the story really I think was in maybe just the lineup to begin with. It wasn't really the strongest lineup. We went with a 4-3-3 again. That seems to be Berhalter is at least started to stick to a formation. But so it was Dest, Zimmerman, Aaron Long in the back line, which is what we kind of expected. The surprise was Sam Vines getting a start. The midfield was Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, and Luca Della Torre. and then up top was Brendan Aronson, Jesus Ferreira, which Rex kind of talked about, and then Gio Reyna. Um, and then Japan kind of went with a similar formation, maybe even a 4-2-3-1, or maybe even a 4-4-2. They seem to be a lot more flexible. Um,
Mhm.
and I guess we'll kind of get started with what happened. I guess I'll do a recap of the goals and events, and then we'll just kind of get started and kind of discuss on how that happened. But I mean, I want to say within the first minute of the game, you saw an issue. Aaron Long tries to pass the ball to Sam Vines. It's a weak pass. It doesn't get to him. And Ito, I guess the midfielder, is able to run onto it and is basically able to dribble all the way into the box and get a shot off. I mean, it is right to Turner, and it's his first of, I guess, 6 saves. But that was a real bad sign early on.
Yeah.
And then, another bad thing that happened was probably 8 minutes in. Really, the only chance we created throughout the entire game is Dest gets the ball out wide. He does very well to get the cross off. It's a good cross, and I know Jesus Ferreira isn't known for his heading ability. And I saw people maybe saying, "Oh, it's not the best cross for his height." I think he mistimed it. I think he mistimed his jump.
Mhm.
I think I
Mhm.
I think he easily could have gotten onto this, and I think in most other strikers that we had in the pool would have gotten on the end of this. I mean, it's one
Yeah.
thing to hit it to head the ball like right to the keeper and force him to make a save. But he's like 6 yards away, maybe even less. He's got to get
Yeah.
that on goal.
And he's
Um,
wide open too. There's no one near him. And
yeah,
maybe that's part of why he mistimed it because he was just like, you're used to people being right near you, and then all of a sudden you're wide open. I don't know, but yeah, I agree. I think Sargent buries that for sure. PFOC buries that. And I mean, it's so early on; it could have changed the game,
I
and
think
it would have
so.
been interesting to see how we defended like a goal lead. But I mean, we need that come World Cup time because you see what happens if literally that's one of their only chances the whole game, and it's
Because
in
it
the eighth
shattered
minute.
because it shattered his confidence. I don't think you saw any crosses into him like that again. You didn't see Des
He
kind of
didn't
do
like.
any kind of ball. Yeah.
Mhm. He
Um.
didn't do anything after that. Yeah.
Right. And so and then really we kind of get started with oh, I guess even before that another like danger moment that kind of foreshadowed what was about to happen is Walker Zimmerman this time tried to play a ball to Aronson. Aronson had to run. This was another thing too. Brendan Aronson was supposed to be our like right winger, and he was running all the way back in the midfield to try to get the ball. And Zimmerman's trying to play a pass to him, and Kubu recognizes what's about to happen. He leaves his man to go get that ball, intercepts it, and basically Kamada gets the ball, and again Turner's called on to make a save. And this is all within the first, I want to say, 15 minutes or so, maybe even
Hmm.
before that. And so frankly, it wasn't a good start, and it just kind of kept from there. The first goal came from Kamada, basically in the 20th minute, and once again, it's a giveaway from Weston McKennie. I think McKennie doesn't want to receive the ball that's played to him by again Aaron Long, and this is kind of one thing we were talking about maybe a little bit last week. We were concerned how those two center backs were going to try to play from the back, how they were going to
Oh
try to
yeah.
try to pass from there. And I mean, some of these passes were terrible, but in other times, they were fine passes by themselves, but because of Japan's pressure, the midfielders didn't want to receive the ball in those areas, and that led to a lot of bad touches and a lot of just uh-oh moments or freakouts.
Mhm.
McKinnon did not have a
Oh
good
yeah.
game doing
No, he was
this
terrible.
doing this at all, and
I saw
so
him. He dribbled like it was a corner that USA was defending, and he tried to dribble out of the top of his own 18 and take on a guy. And I mean, he immediately lost the ball, and it's an immediate chance on goal. And it's like, dude, just boot that out. You can't take on an opponent right at the top of your 18. If you lose the ball, it's going to be a shot on goal. And I mean, the pitch was dreadful too, but Japan
yep.
was able to play on it.
Hmm.
And we didn't really adapt to it. So that's not an excuse at all. But it just you're getting a touch, and the pitch is terrible. You're getting a pass, and there's high press. I mean yeah, that's a recipe for disaster, and it was sloppy for USA, really sloppy.
That's a good word for it, sloppy. That because
Hmm.
a lot of people were trying to say that oh, Japan were just a really good pressing team that day. I, I think Japan was just man marking us and frankly just waiting for us to make mistakes, and we did. Um,
Hmm.
but just going back to the first goal, I mean it's a bad giveaway by McKinney, but there's still plenty of ways to prevent this goal, and it's bad that we don't. Again, it's just I think Ito is able to just basically run into the box kind of unmarked. I think he passes it to someone like Marita, and then he passes it to a completely wide open Kamada. And this is another one of those situations where I don't know whether to go hard on Dest or not, because I understand why Dest is maybe trying to run upfield when he thinks McKinney's about to receive the ball, but I feel like he's jogging. There's right at the end when actually Kamada gets the ball, you see him trying to start to sprint, and then he stops because he recognizes it's pointless. I think if he starts sprinting in the first time, he's able to get back in time. So I didn't really like that, but again, we kind of talked about that last week. Dest isn't playing a whole
Mm,
lot right now, and
yeah.
I just think he needs reps. I think he's rusty. So I think
Mhm.
that kind of showed too.
Yeah.
And then, another thing that was funny is like watching this live, the commentators didn't think it was going to, because it originally was called offsides. They didn't think the goal was going to stand because they were like, "Oh, it's okay. We don't have VAR. We got away with one." And then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
VAR
That
showed
was
up.
weird.
So
Uh-huh.
that was kind of I guess a telling of a good way to describe the game. Essentially, that's how it
Ugh,
went for the U.S. that day. Um, and
yeah.
frankly, I feel like Japan deserved the lead after that opening 30 minutes. So good goal or not, yeah, I think I do think it's questionable to be honest, but it's a good finish. I'll put it that way. There's not a whole lot Turner
Yeah.
could do about that, and Turner had
No.
already saved two or three diving saves even before that, and
Mhm.
then it ends with Matoma, a sub, getting a second one, and I don't think this goal is much better from the U.S. perspective either. It is good play by Matoma. I don't want to necessarily take away anything from him, but he gets the ball on the touchline, and he still has about 30 yards to dribble up into the box, and he's able to do it because Reggie Cannon is confused on how to track back. Essentially, he's almost wrong sided himself. He's like turning his back to the ball, which is very weird way to defend. So no one tries to close down on him, and the sub Malik Tillman didn't do any better. I feel like they could have fouled him. There were a number of chances to stop that goal before Mitoma even got into the box as well.
Mhm.
I thought so, and again, that's a pretty good shot. It's hard to really go at Turner for that. So
Yeah.
that
Definitely.
that kind of sets it up. I can go into kind of the key stats, but I mean, I've kind of talked a little bit about it. What were your first thoughts, Rex, or what would you like to say first?
Yeah, it was really disappointing. I don't really have confidence in Zimmerman or Long at center back, and I know there are some injuries. Obviously, I mean, maybe it's time to recall Tim Ream and Brooks to the squad. I know. I mean, you kind of mentioned it how we looked almost rusty, and I think we also just we. I mean, we really had like a week, not even, to all train together, but it really did look like, it was just 11 players, like, they just got there, and Berhalter was like, "Go play," because they did not gel at all together. And I think maybe if you bring in Ream and then Robinson's healthy, I mean, that's a good solid part of your left defense that plays together in the Premier League. They've played a lot of games together already. So if you're looking to gel, there's two defensive guys right there that play together all the time. And it's a left back and it's a left center back. That's perfect.
I mean,
And
Ream doesn't even have to just kind of cut in. Ream doesn't even have to play for me, but just there's no reason why he can't get into the squad over Aaron Long. I don't understand what Berhalter sees in Aaron Long. Um,
yeah, I don't get it either. And then I mean, you mentioned Dest too, and Dest definitely looked rusty. He needs to play a lot more. But I mean, I think we're okay at fullback. Because we Yedlin has a lot of experience, and
mhm.
we have Scaly and some others.
Well, I want to
But
see either
whew,
Yedlin or Scaling. I don't want to see Cannon again.
no, because yeah, I don't think we will because we already saw Cannon come on for Dest. But man, I don't know. I think we do need Anthony Robinson, and then we
Hmm.
need to do something about center back because besides striker, I'm really worried about center back. I don't like you said, like, it's Zimmerman and a question mark next to him. Who else is going to play? I
And
don't I don't
and
really like any of the options.
Zimmerman was not really good either, to be honest.
No, he's not really good
He had a
either.
lot of giveaways either. I mean, as well. I think a
Mm,
lot of people were saying on the line were saying, "Oh, this is why we miss Michael Robinson." and I get
Mm,
Michael Robinson had good vibes, and he had a very good Gold Cup. I don't. I think we won the Gold Cup because of him, mostly.
mm,
But Mike Robinson played a lot in those World Cup qualifying games, and against teams that were against the better teams like Mexico and Canada.
mm.
Robinson was not
Yeah,
good. People might
true.
might have forgotten that. Like he got two pretty bad yellow cards against Mexico that forced him to miss the Jamaica game, which we actually ended up seriously missing him for that. And he was
Mm,
awful versus Canada
mm.
in that second game. So it's just I think you're right. Just I don't know how to necessarily fix that center back problem other than frankly playing a different way. You mentioned John Brooks. We kind of talked about him last week, and Team Ream, and I've seen online that the reasons been that has been cited is Berhalter doesn't think they can play in a high line, and
Mm.
this kind of
Uh,
when I saw this kind of made me flip out a little bit, and maybe it's a theme with Berhalter. I'm wondering if he actually has a style he wants to play with, like an actual philosophy that's his own, or he just looks at how Liverpool and Man City are playing in the Premier League, and they're like, or like Bayern Munich, and they're like, all the top elite teams are playing with a high line and they're playing 4-3-3, and we have to
mm.
play like that. And like international football is not like club football for a
Well,
reason,
the weird
kind of like
thing,
this.
the weird thing too, is like as a coach, I mean, yeah, you have like a philosophy, but if you don't have the players to do that philosophy, like you have to
That
do, what the players are comfortable at. So
correct.
if they're not comfortable playing a high line, don't play a high line. And you have like you have Chris Richards maybe a little faster. He doesn't play that much for Crystal Palace either, but you have some other center back options perhaps if you do want to play that way. But yeah, to your point, I mean, Berhalter, we're trying to pass out of the back, and our defense is rusty, or it's not really our starting defense for major games, and we're still trying to play out of the back. I mean, that's not going to work, and you saw it didn't work. So where's the adjustment? Where's the changes of tactics? You would think you would know. Hey, maybe this one we don't have to play out of the back so much. If they're pressing hard, we don't have the players to play out of the back. Let's just boot it deep, and we'll just stay competitive, and we'll at least play well defensively. Like even if we don't play out of the back, just boot it deep, and it won't hurt us. And that's the exact opposite of what happened. I feel like they made tons of mistakes that led to direct chances.
Yeah, I mean to get on that, and I actually kind of skipped over the main stats, but I think the stat ESPN said was we lost the ball 54 times in the first half.
That's insane.
And I don't. That wasn't necessarily just from like you mentioned the pitch. I mean that could have played some role in it. Maybe like a bad touch here and there, but we were
Yeah.
bad passing the ball. To be honest, I
Mm.
mean Turner had to make 5 diving saves. That wasn't great either. We had 4 shots and absolutely nothing on target.
Mm.
Probably the closest chance was Ferreira's miss or Brendan Aronson. I think had a shot kind of late
Yeah.
into the game that maybe if that's on
Hmm.
target, that maybe threatens, but other
Mm.
than that, we were just compared to Japan having 16 shots and 8 on target. Um, yeah, it's Japan had 25 interceptions as well. Just we didn't show up. And a lot of people have been trying to, and I don't want to necessarily discount Japan. We'll get to them. But I think my first takeaway was I think other than like a mid-tier Concacaf team, it would have been a similar result. I just think we were bad. Um, and that kind of gets into what those stats show. But another
Yeah.
problem
It's not
too
good stats.
is we've kind of mentioned a few players already that are either out of form or what. But Burkhalter was asking players to basically play a style or do some tasks that they don't do for their club team. So like Aaron Long and Zimmerman aren't Ruben Diaz and Laporte like for their MLS clubs. Like I mean they defend first center backs. So why are you expecting them to all of a sudden adapt? Because they're also like I think they're in their late 20s too. They're not going to just learn how to play a different style. Sam Vines was a surprise to see at left back, and you basically saw the difference between him and Anton Robinson, to be honest, because he was not
Yeah.
offering anything, any kind of width at all in that first half. He actually started playing a little higher up in the second half, and that helped. But
Yeah, it did.
I think that was a problem as well. Just another issue is you're playing Gio Reyna and Brendan Aronson as your quote unquote
Yeah.
wingers. They're
Hmm.
like number 10. They're not number 10 creative players. And they can
Yeah.
drop back and they're final third players. They are not going to try to make runs upfield left and right. They're not going to try to get in behind as much. And I think that was a problem too. Like there are a couple ways to uh, beat through a team that's high pressing you. You can try to pass from the back, which is what the Man Cities do, or you can just go long and try to win a long ball from the striker and try to win second balls and just kind of do it that way. Just get the ball upfield. The goal isn't you're not graded on how pretty it looks. Um,
Yeah.
and like another thing, like again, I don't know why Berhalter is kind of choosing to play this way, other than he thinks that's how like outsiders want to see, or he
Hmm.
thinks like this is what they do in England or in like the big clubs in England, and so this is how you
Hmm.
must play, and that's a weird way to
Yeah.
go about it. And I don't,
I don't
I
know.
mean that's maybe harsh, but I mean, what do you think about that?
Mm. Well, I mean, I guess he's starting Reyna and Aronson out wide because he wants speed there. I mean, I guess, but like you said, they're both number tens, and Aronson's been playing pretty good for Leeds as a number 10. So I would prefer him to be you know in the attacking midfield role.
We don't play a
And
position with a number 10.
well, yeah, we don't either. But it would be perfect if you had like McKennie and Adams is your double pivot. It'd be perfect. I mean, Musa changes things too when he's in there.
I think so.
He was really missed. And Pulisic too. Actually, I think Pulisic would have helped. Because also Reyna's rusty. He's just coming back from injury. So we've seen him for USA play well when he's healthy, but he's on the comeback trail too. And I'm sure Berhalter didn't want to risk anything.
That was kind of
But
shocking.
I
I
think
guess I guess we won't see him today. I was shocked to see him get a
right.
start because I figured he was going to have
It's
managed minutes.
It sounds like we're gonna have Pulisic start today. I hear and Ricardo Pepi up top.
Oh, Pepe,
So that'll
really?
be good at least.
Okay.
That's what I heard. Yeah, I read an ESPN article about it, but who knows? I mean, I don't know. But
I think the
Pepe
best.
Pepe would be better than
I
Ferreira.
mean, Pepe is. I mean, that's another guy that's all of a sudden. I mean, he's not really getting minutes in Germany. I think Berhalter was actually really upset with him making the move because this is actually Ferreira's teammate. Um,
Mhm.
when he was getting games with the MLS, he was finally getting call ups here. I think that's the best we actually looked when Pepe was playing
Yeah.
with us, and it's kind of
Mhm.
weird how he's been phased out.
Where's
Since the
Pepe at? Groningen, I
I thought
think.
it was Osberg.
He's in. Oh, he moved to Groningen. Yeah,
Okay,
this year. So, yeah, he's in Eredivisie, the Dutch league. Still pretty good. But yeah, he hasn't played as much. But I
but he
mean,
had when he
I
played
think he scored a goal at
when he played,
least.
he had good link up play. I mean, you can pass the ball to him. He's good with his back to goal. He can collect it. He's got the legs to make runs ahead. I think he's got a good pass on him.
Mhm.
So I again, it's kind of shocking how we've gotten here. Maybe all this works out in the end, and we actually do perform a little bit in the in the tournament. But it's the way we've gotten here has been almost shambolic, to be honest. But let's kind of keep focusing on the striker, because we touched a little bit on the center backs. We agree that's an issue. Well, actually, first off, we were worried about the keeper situation, and
Yeah.
I think that's maybe been answered. Um,
Yeah, I think that's one of the only good things to take from this game, honestly.
and one of the I didn't think about this, but this is a really good stat or a really good idea. I think it was first suggested by it might have been Twelman, but I think
Yeah.
you even wrote it
Mhm.
down on the script here. The idea of worrying about him not getting game time, it looks like with the way the schedules are, with there'll be a League Cup week and then Europa weeks almost every week, or there's a game every week now, leading up to November. He's going to get a game once a week or so. So
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
not
and
going to
that's
be
it's
cold or
perfect.
rusty. That is good.
Mhm. Yeah, when they said that at, like, 6 to 7 starts, I was like, "What?" And then I realized, "Oh, yeah, like, Europa League's compacted, and, they're down a game in Europa League too from everyone else." So, yeah, it's gonna be perfect. A game a week is setting up awesome, and, I mean, Matt Turner was great, and, I mean, that at least takes a worry off my list for USA, which is great. I mean, that's huge, but, there's only so much a goalkeeper can do, and you saw that here. Matt Turner made a ton of saves and, you know, 2 really good goals, and Japan could have scored more,
Well, there was another
if someone else was in there, so
Turner to me makes sense. It's just the whole thing was like, oh, you can't play from the back, and I feel like the only reason you want to do that is because you watch Man City and Ederson. Like
Mhm.
Stefan was playing in all the big games we had. Like he played versus Mexico. I think he played versus
Mhm.
Canada. I mean, Turner was mostly our Gold Cup keeper, and
Yeah.
then he got called on a little bit towards the end. But
Mhm.
it was just weird how we kept changing keepers too. Like, ugh, again,
Yeah.
if it works out in the end, we won't talk about it. But again, the way we've gotten here has been weird. But
Yeah.
let's focus a little bit on the striker, because to me it happened out of nowhere. It's like in the beginning of World Cup qualifying, we were not talking about Jesus Ferreira, and this guy has suddenly become he's been pushed in front of everyone else. And I have my reasons, but I'm curious if you kind of think the same way, or maybe you're seeing something that I'm not. But what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I guess Berhalter's just looking at his MLS stats, and he's playing really well. They've played like 32 games. He plays for FC Dallas, but he has 18 goals and 5 assists.
Mhm.
So I think Berhalter's like he's on fire. Let's put him up top. And I mean, I hate to be like this, but 18 goals in the MLS is different than like PFOC has 4 goals, 2 assists in the Bundesliga. Norwich has Sargent, and he has 6 goals and an assist in the Championship. I mean, those are more quality leagues than the MLS. So I mean, I think Berhalter was just looking at that domestic form and was like, I got to play him. Maybe he's on the roster for the World Cup, but maybe he doesn't know if he's a starter, so he's like, I'll just give him a shot.
Mhm.
But the MLS, it's not the Bundesliga, and I know they played a lot more games than Sargent has at Norwich or PFOC at Union Berlin, but MLS is not the Bundesliga. It's not the championship. So I don't know. I'd like to see Sargent, PFOC, Pepe's even better than Ferreira because he's in the Eredivisie. I just don't think the MLS. I don't know. I mean, you kind of saw, he has a lot of goals in the MLS, but he couldn't score like a wide open header on the USA team. So
So, want to not necessarily get into too much conspiracy talk, but in like I guess I want to say like I want to say the back channels, but there's been a long kind of gripe I think online. There's been like a disconnect between just like U.S. soccer fans just in general, and then those that are actually affiliated with the MLS. That
mm,
the MLS has basically tried to use the U.S. men's national team as like a de facto promo for the MLS
yeah,
brand, essentially. And I don't know if that's necessarily what this was, but to me, it was really, really shaky how when we played Granada in the Nations League, and it was like the ranked 200 or something team. It was a throwaway game, and out of all the players to pick that day, that's when Pereira got his really first start, and that's when he got 4 goals. And so it's ever since that everyone's looked and he's like, look, Pereira scored 4 goals for the U.S. men's national team this year. That's why he should be picked. And like it's just that was really shady to me, and it was done. I think it was done intentionally. I think you could have played Pepe or PFOC or whoever that day, and I think they would have had a similar performance because I watched that
it
game
was still
live.
4-2. Yeah,
They were not defending.
hmm
Like
yeah,
Ferreira was able to finish, and that's good. But there's get the ball in the box, and you've got all time in the world to do whatever you want to do.
yeah.
And I think
That's a
that's I,
good
I think
point,
that's been
Ben.
a big I think that's been a big issue, at least for me.
Hmm.
Um, Another thing
Yeah,
too.
and
Uh,
it just doesn't work though. It hasn't worked in the past, right? Like using MLS players, we haven't qualified for the World Cup, and we had a lot of MLS players.
I remember, like, that's the reason why so many people hated Klinsmann in the beginning, is because he talked about how he wanted guys to actually play in Europe, and there was just a whole lot of a reaction about that. And when a lot like Clint Dempsey, a few other guys ended up coming back. I don't know if it was Jordan Morris, but a few other guys ended up coming back to play in
Donovan,
America.
Landon Donovan. Hmm.
Um, that it was just celebrated, and after Clemson, we had like Bruce Arena, and he kind of tried to do MLS thing too. I think
Yeah.
I think there's been an ulterior motive, and it hasn't just been what's best for U.S. soccer.
Mhm.
Um, and again, that could be just me being cuckoo, but that's just something that I've observed. But another thing too is I kind of want to get this argument out before I want get the counter argument out before it's I guess offered is uh, Jordan Peacock had his chance versus Mexico and missed. I want to say a sitter, but it missed a fairly good chance to beat Mexico in that World Cup qualifier. It was very. I mean, it was all over the internet. It was shared everywhere. Oh, what a miss!
Mhm.
And so that's the reason why maybe he wasn't picked, or why he's maybe been kind of thrown. got in the short end of the stick. We've now seen
Mhm.
Jesus Ferreira miss here for Japan. To me, that's a much worse miss. I saw him miss a sitter versus Uruguay, and I remember him missing a few pretty bad chances versus Honduras when he played in that Minnesota game, going back
Mhm.
to I don't know, January or February. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there. I mean, it's maybe if DK hadn't gotten hurt, maybe we would have seen a little bit more of him.
Mhm.
I was kind of curious to see if maybe he was going to try Tim Weah as the striker to kind of
Yeah.
move just to basically have a fluid front three. But Weah being hurt,
Mhm.
we haven't necessarily been able to see that. So there have injuries
Mhm.
have kind of played a role in this. But again, every country is kind of dealing with that too. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we talked a little bit about Berhalter. I guess we kind of talked a little bit about the pressing. I mean, again,
Mhm.
I thought it was really maddening how I didn't really think Japan were pressing. I just thought they were staying high and they were just man marking us. And just what did you maybe think about that?
Yeah, I just
So like another thing too is a specific player that they were marking was Tyler Adams. I noticed this too. So
Mhm.
it seemed like or Zimmerman or whoever wanted to get the ball to Adams more than anyone else, and like that made it really easy for Japan to kind of focus on him. And I think Adams needed someone next to him. You mentioned some kind of a pivot. I think that would have helped in this game because Luca Della Torre and McKennie were not doing that job. So, what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, Japan was just way more disciplined too, and it looked like the U.S. team had been just slapped together, and it looked like they hadn't played together really,
Hmm.
but it wasn't the case for Japan, and they had the same amount of time to play together before this game, only a couple days in the camp, and they were playing on the same pitch too, and it didn't seem to bother them that much. So I just feel like they were more disciplined. They could adapt easier. I mean, they were more fluid in their formations, just more fluid in general. And we have the same players they do, like talent wise. Like we're not any worse than them talent wise. So for me, this is just like it's got to be either the players just being lazy, or the coaches not setting up, the way they want to play right and the way they should be playing. And we talked about that too with Berhalter trying to do, City or Liverpool esque things with players that aren't City quality players. But yeah, I just thought Japan was much more disciplined. They're going to be a hard team to beat, I think, in the World Cup because they are so fluid. They're so disciplined, and they played well as a team. I didn't see necessarily like a lot of individuals. I saw a really good, like cohesive
And you
team,
saw one
and
twos, you saw where people wanted to be, you saw
yeah,
overlap runs.
it looked like they've been playing together for a while, and that's what I want from the USA. And one thing too, Ben, I don't know if you know this, but um, we're not USA is not going to be playing a game before the World Cup. A lot of these teams are playing one more before the World Cup starts.
Yeah.
Just to get more reps in together. And there's still time for us to schedule something, but we're one of the, like some of the teams aren't doing it, and we're one of them. And I just think, especially, we'll see how today goes, but it looked like the team just needs more playing time together too. So I'd be disappointed if they didn't schedule that game, honestly, especially if we don't look like a good cohesive team today against
Schedule
Saudi Arabia.
just schedule a
I mean, we're gonna
practice
need that game.
in
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
in like the Middle East. Like get used to that heat,
Hmm.
get used to that weather.
Yeah, I think that's what some of these teams are doing. I think Japan's gonna do that. I mean, I know injuries are a concern, but man, I mean, if we're not looking like a team, we need those extra reps together, I think.
Yeah, it's so funny. So many teams are worried about, their stars maybe having legs because they're playing too much, and ours are just like rusty because they like Pulisic or whatnot. They aren't necessarily playing for their national team. Like, we don't know if Des is going to be starting for AC Milan after this.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've got a lot of. Well, I guess like the MLS players have their season going on, and maybe they'll be in like the heart of the playoffs. Um,
Mhm.
but I mean, maybe in a weird way, maybe those MLS guys will finally show up. But
I hope so.
let's kind of talk a little bit about the second half because the first half was just awful. Berhalter did make some changes to his credit, and so let's see. Let me because I mentioned the players. So he brought on Reggie Cannon for Dest. He brought on Mark McKenzie for Aaron Long. He brought in Jordan Morris for Gio Reyna, and then towards like the 68th minute, he brought on Tillman for McKinney and Cardoso for Luca Della Torre. Um, do you have any thoughts on any of those changes, or was there anyone that impressed you, or anyone where you were like, I don't want to ever see him again?
I don't know. I'm kind of over Jordan Morris, to be honest with you. I mean, he does a job. Like he does what he's told. Maybe he's a good bench player. But I mean, I was expecting a little bit more out of maybe McKenzie and Cannon.
Mhm.
They weren't great. I mean, no one was great. But Sargent didn't get a lot of service either. I was looking forward to seeing him. But I think the changes did a little bit, for us. We played a little bit better,
I thought
but
we
that's
did.
not saying much
Yeah.
because we were so poor before.
I mean, one thing I definitely noticed. I thought Tyler Adams was actually playing deeper. He seemed to be a lot more involved, at least in the build-up. And one thing I also saw was I thought Luca Della Torre was playing deeper as well. So
Mhm.
you had we had a lot of guys kind of helping out, kind of close to our defense, as opposed to it was a little bit more. There were a little bit more gaps where it was just Tyler Adams by himself. I thought that helped. We kind of mentioned Sam Vines. Sam Vines was playing higher up, and if nothing else, I mean, he doesn't necessarily have to be uh, Andrew Robinson or uh, you know, Andrew Robinson for Liverpool or like Chilwell. I'm just kind of using fullbacks that go by.
Yeah.
Uh, he just had to run up to just kind of be a danger where it pushed Japan's fullback back. Because that
Mhm.
was another thing too. While Sam Vance was playing so defensively, it allowed Japan to just kind of creep up, and
Yeah.
that made overlap runs really easy for them because he's already there.
Do you, Ben, do you think that was a tactic? Like, did Berhalter tell Vines don't push up, or was Vines just like, this is the way I usually play. I'm just not going to push up too much. I wonder if Berhalter told him that.
I was amazed we didn't see Joe Scaly play, to be honest, because versus Uruguay, Scaly actually did play left back. Maybe we'll see him today. I've seen talks. Maybe there will actually be Dest tried there instead. Maybe Scaly at right back, which I would not. I would
Hmm.
not want to see. I want to see Dest get the reps at right back because he's not playing right now.
Yeah.
He needs that. And let's see if Scaly can
Mhm.
actually basically cement his spot on the team because I don't want to see Cannon. I don't think Yedlin can play left back. We need someone else for Robinson. You basically
Mhm.
nothing else. You kind of mentioned Musa. My takeaway basically from that Japan game is we saw how important Musa is in that midfield, at least when the build up, and
Mhm.
we saw how important Robinson has been. That
Gosh,
maybe
yeah.
he's kind of an unsung hero at the moment. Just the
Mhm.
team just looked so much different. Um,
Mhm. Aronson was good. He was Aronson was one of the only
Aronson was good.
good outfield players for me, and that kind of ties into playing a lot for Leeds. But I would like to see him as a number 10, maybe just for USA, because that's what he's playing for. He's playing that position for Leeds, so let's see what he can do there. And I mean, Moose is out. Let's do a double pivot of Adams and McKennie. Put Aronson as your number 10. I don't know who would play out wide. Who knows?
I mean,
Pulisic's back, so maybe Pulisic on the left, and maybe you do Rain out on the right. I don't know, but I don't know. And
I,
we have Malik Tillman too. That was another positive. I know he's young, so that's good. At least we got him in. He's on loan. He's a Bayern Munich player, but he's on loan. I forget where, but he's
that
playing wherever he is.
that was one of those where like I understand trying to get him some kind of minutes. I mean Cardozo was kind of wild too. So I didn't understand bringing both guys that haven't seen. I don't think either have featured like significantly at least yet. And you bring in two guys on that probably haven't played together to play the final 20 minutes, and lo and behold, that turned out to be a disaster. We
True.
I thought you mentioned we were playing better in the second half. I thought we were. I thought we kind of fixed our build-up issues. We weren't turning the ball over as much. And then after those subs, after Cardozo and Tillman came in, it was a disaster again. Now that coincided with Japan making changes as well. They brought in Mitoma,
Mhm.
who was amazing on that side, and Cannon. I think Cannon lost his shot at the World Cup, to be honest. Um,
Mhm.
let's see. We talked about McKinney. I mean, do you think it's as simple as getting Pulisic, Robinson, and Musa back? Because
Oh
to be
man.
fair, it's not. This isn't the U.S. team that we think is going to be starting that first game in Wales, assuming
Mhm.
everyone's healthy. So maybe that's something to kind of be
Yeah,
happy about.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's part of it. But the big question after that, when we have those people healthy, is our center backs and still our striker. Those questions are still there.
Yes.
Um, So I mean, it's just another thing. Like we were worried about goalkeeper, and now we're kind of not. So it's just another thing, like off the checklist. I feel like for us to get ready for the World Cup, and I mean, this checklist is long, and it's we're not checking things off very quickly. But yeah, I think that helps, but it doesn't answer our center back question, which is very important, and it doesn't answer our striker problem too, and that's really important as well. So I don't know. It's a little bit of something to take away, I guess, some positive things to take away from the performance because I mean it was boring, man. I fell asleep almost. We just
Well,
it was bad.
I enjoyed watching Japan knock it around a little bit, but that I'll get into
Yeah,
I'll get
Japan
into
was
why
good.
Japan. If you were like kind of raking up and wanting to see some good football from the U.S., I mean, maybe you got to get to see the new kits, and that was about all the excitement you had, essentially.
Oh, the
Uh,
kids were as bad as the play on the field. They were,
oh no,
but honestly, the kids didn't look as bad as I thought they would
looks better with the
from
numbers.
the camera angle up far away too. It didn't look as bad, but I mean, gosh, just
Some
not good,
nice
Ben. Not good at all.
nice stripes on the. I mean, it's not like we're sponsored by Nike. Go get the kit.
Yeah.
Um,
Ugh.
we should focus a little bit on Japan though. I mean, I did mention that they were interesting. I wasn't necessarily just because they have a lot of guys in Europe right now. Um, and
Hmm.
frankly, I mentioned a lot of guys. Well, I did mention we did mention Kamada, but I did not mention Mitoma on Brighton, who he isn't necessarily playing week in and out either. He's kind of fresh, but you just kind of saw what kind of options that Japan has. I mean, to kind of touch on them. I mean, what did you think of his finish, or I mean, what do you
It
think
was
of Brighton
amazing.
maybe having another gym? Because he was dangerous
They-
just when he came on.
yeah, they might. And I mean, Japan has a lot of good players. Kubo's pretty good. He plays for Real Sociedad.
Cuba was, yeah.
They have Tomiyasu, and I don't. Do you remember Yoshida for Southampton? He doesn't play for Southampton anymore, but he was a center back as well.
Hmm.
And then Kamada, we know what he brings, and they have good bench players too. And some like you talk about Matoma, but they have Furuhashi, who's been banging in goals for Celtic. Ito was good off the bench. I really think this is I mean, not a dark horse team because I don't think they're necessarily going to, make it too far. But I do think they'll make it into the knockout rounds. They're going to be hard to beat based on what I saw, and they're just, they look like a cohesive unit, and they just started this September camp. So I expect them to just build on that, and they're going to be tough to score on. I think, and I think they're going to just be a hard team to beat. They're going to get some points. I think they're going to make it out. I think they're possibly going to make it out of the group stage, but I don't know how much further after that,
I mean, I
but
don't want
they
to put
just
you,
looked a lot
I
better.
don't want you to put you on the spot. But I did actually have this written down. I mean, their group is Costa Rica, Germany, Spain, and Japan. Um, I mean, I'm not going to necessarily predict it either. But frankly, Spain has struggled. Um, Spain has struggled since since they got the Europa semifinals, but since then
Mhm,
they did not have a good World Cup qualifying. They just lost to Switzerland on the weekend, where they had something like 8 shots, I think 4 on target. It's a similar Spanish side where they look to have all the pieces you need except for a striker, and they're not scoring enough
Cracker, yeah.
goals. So is it?
Mhm,
I mean, maybe it's possible that they could slip through Spain. I mean, Germany are kind of in shaky form now as well. But I mean, missing Royce, maybe you get him back. Maybe things will change. They're missing Adeyemi as
mhm,
well. Rudiger
yeah,
would have maybe helped yesterday. So
definitely. Yeah, that's the thing too, is, like, Germany lost to Hungary on, what was it, like, Tuesday or Wednesday? And, I mean, Hungary's not bad, but I think Japan's probably, either of that quality or a little better. So, yeah, they definitely have a chance to beat Germany, and like you said, Spain, kinda who knows about them. Um, I mean, yeah, Japan could move out of this group for sure. Maybe not win it. Maybe it'd be like Germany and Japan, and then Spain, like really close. But I think I just don't think Japan are going to, uh, you know, they're going to be tough to beat. I mean, I could see them like drawing a lot, and then maybe getting that Costa Rica win, and getting like 5 points, and maybe that's good enough to get out of the group. I don't know, but maybe it's also this USA did not look good at all, so that's kind of building up Japan in my head a little bit. But I mean, Japan did play well, and they have some good players.
I mean, one thing I actually want to I'll put down two things because the first thing I'll say is Japan were not far from basically beating Belgium and playing Brazil in the World Cup in 2018. People maybe forget this game, but the game between, because everyone remembers the Neymar and Kevin De Bruyne Belgium game, or I guess the Courtois game. But the game before that was maybe game of the World Cup. I think it ended 3-2.
Mm.
Japan were actually beating Belgium 2-0, and then I mean Fellaini maybe got a goal to kind of start things off, and they basically Belgium rallied to score 3 goals in the final like 20 minutes, led by Kevin De Bruyne as well. I think Lukaku ended up scoring in the final minutes, but they were good last World Cup. And another thing that was interesting is Germany was talked about them as almost like they played like Spain. They played the way they pass and the way they move. It was an attractive ball on the eye, essentially. And so
Yeah.
wha the thing that's interesting is their story of development is very interesting, because well, almost depressing, to be honest, because it's credited to an American. And I actually read an article about him last night, I think on Slate. Um, but this guy basically developed a youth program in Japan, and he did it like decades ago, where he wanted to focus a lot more on basically first touch and close ball control. And his whole thing is like basically practicing by yourself. But another thing too is to not never rely on your speed or athleticism, which is interesting because basically he said, and this is where you can see maybe why our development is different, is because once you learn to do that, you start to discount the other traits that you maybe need. And so once you
Mm.
become athletically superior, you almost become lazy developing everything else. And maybe at
Mm.
Japan, that kind of helps because they maybe aren't nearly as tall or physical as maybe our kids are.
Interesting,
Eh,
because I mean, if you're getting pressed too in the game, you need to have a really good first touch.
They're
Your first
amazing.
touch needs to set up
They're
your
amazing
second
in
touch.
close
Like,
spaces. Yeah,
mhm,
like all
yeah.
all of them were, and it was a
I mean,
bad pitch.
they made us look like I mean, they made us look like we were like Ecuador or something, and they were like, and they were, 2010 Spain, passing around us. Yeah, man. I mean, their first touch was much better than ours. Ours was like bouncing, yards off our feet. Like, and again, the pitch was bad, but Japan's dealing with the same pitch. It didn't seem to affect them nearly as much as it did for us.
Another too, like thing too, is like, and we'll maybe into this, maybe not. Something I've noticed is with a lot of like European clubs, or I mean, European teams, is because losing the ball is seen as basically like I don't know, killing the coach's mother. Like you're not allowed to really be adventurous or try. And it seemed like Japan actually had some freedom in their game as well. I mean, they
Mhm.
weren't just
Yeah.
passing side to side. I mean, they were calm on the ball, but they were also adventurous as well. Like
Mhm.
to me, I enjoyed that game just because of what Japan had to offer. And so if you do, what I would say is if you do get a chance to watch some World Cup games, just kind of by yourself, and Japan is on, I would tune in for them. But also, I mean, they're going to play Germany and Spain. I mean, those will just be good games as well to watch. Um,
Yeah, I think so too, and, they have Japan has eager runners too, like Ito and Kubo.
hmm.
They're not afraid to, like, make a sprint down the sideline, and they might not get the ball, but, that's okay because making those runs opens things up, and you might get a ball, next time. So, they just we looked lazy, and they didn't look lazy. I mean, it's like everything really. I don't know.
I mean,
But
I,
Japan will be good. I'm gonna be rooting for them, honestly.
I'm pretty sure Kubo is like a Barca youth product. Like they got him like really young, and then they sold him to Real Madrid. He's never really played for
Yeah.
Real Madrid, but like you kind of figure someone, oh, a Barca kid's gonna have like the best first touch on the field. I couldn't tell a
Yeah.
difference between Kubo's touch and everyone else.
Mm.
It was stunning. Especially you mentioned like
Hmm.
with like the bad pitch. You figured well, we were gonna struggle. Maybe they would struggle, and they didn't. Um, and we're kind
Yeah.
of
Oh,
going.
he was a Barca youth too, Ben. He was, and then eventually went to Real Madrid, Villarreal, Getafe. He's
He's never
where's he at
really,
now?
yeah,
Real Sociedad
he's never
now.
really panned out, but he was so young when all this happened. He's probably still like 22, maybe even less.
And in 2021, he was $33 million player. So that's pretty good. How old is he? Let's see. All right, he made his national team debut in 2019. So he's pretty young. He's 21.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, and so I mean, we we spent a lot of time on U.S. and Japan, but this is mostly going to be a U.S. focused show, as I said.
Yeah.
Let's do a little U.S. Saudi preview. We're not really going to talk a ton of Saudi Arabia, but just to kind of stick on US still, what do you personally want to see different, or what are you maybe expecting Berhalter to make changes, or maybe you won't expect him to make changes?
Yeah, I'm hoping he makes changes. I don't want to see Vines really.
Mhm.
Although, well, maybe I prefer to see Vines over Cannon, but I'm interested to see what he does at center back. Like I said, I heard that Pepe's going to start up top, which that's fine. I want to see I mean I want to see Sargent too, honestly, up there. And then Pulisic I think is going to be back, so I want to see how Pulisic plays, although he's probably going to be rusty too. I don't know. The main thing for me though is I just want that attitude to change. I want us to show like a little bit more heart and desire. Our first touch needs to be way better. And then we can't be sloppy like we were. We were very sloppy. We got to watch out when we pass out of the back. And then maybe a little adaptability too. Like if they are pressing us hard, maybe we don't play out of the back. We just send it deep a little bit. We have Pulisic back probably, so that could help. But yeah, mainly I just want to see us play like we've played together before. Just get some passes going, like some nice 1-2s like Japan did. You know, um, I don't know. I'm just hoping for a complete attitude adjustment too. It needs to be better. It needs to be a lot better.
And maybe one again silver lining is and I think you kind of put this in the script as well, that this game is maybe a better judgment to kind of see how we're going to play versus Wales. I don't want to say necessarily England, but we're probably. I mean, Wales is
Yeah,
probably or Iran. They're probably going to sit back. Maybe not necessarily press as much. Maybe give us a little bit more time on the ball. Kind of sit back and try to play counter ball, which I'm not going to necessarily stereotype, but I do think that's how Saudi Arabia is going to play today. So we'll have more time on the ball. So if we're still
yeah,
giving it away, I mean that
it'd be
is
bad
yeah,
because we should have time at least.
that is the emergency signal
Saudi Arabia's 53rd too in the
going.
FIFA
Uh
ranking,
oh.
so they're not terrible.
Well, not just that.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia played Japan twice. I think they won one and lost one, and they
Oh,
finished higher than Japan in Europe, Asia qualifying. So
oof.
people should not be looking at this like, oh, it's just Saudi Arabia. We'll roll over them.
Yeah,
Not if
this
you're
is
looking
not a
like that versus
throwaway.
Japan. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and frankly, I kind of mentioned. I mentioned the coach, but I didn't mention his name. I now know his name. Uh, Saudi Arabia has a proven international coach in Hervé Renard. Um, he's won two African Cup of Nations with different countries. Like he knows how to handle international competitions. Now, again, it's a friendly, so we don't really know what to expect. But again, it's a good test because we're probably going to go against a block, and you're going to imagine this is how Iran's going to play. We'll get into Iran as well
Mhm.
because I watched Iran versus Uruguay, and Iran. I mean, they I want to say they played like Burnley ball, but they played deep, and they did stuff on the counter. Um, but Iran looked a lot better on the ball than I was expecting. So that'll be another game where we can't just show up and just expect, oh, it'll be like playing Honduras or playing
Mhm.
like Guatemala. It won't be. Um,
No, yeah, I agree. Renard is actually on the international level. He's coached a lot of places, but he's also coached at Lille, Sochaux in France. So he's a really good coach. And let's see, he's 15-4-7 with Saudi Arabia. So yeah, this is going to be a tough match, Ben. It's going to be
it's a good
it's going
hire
to be
for them.
tough. Yeah, yeah, definitely, and smart to extend his contract too. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some quotes from like Berhalter, and it seems like after the loss to Japan, the intensity in practice has been there, and he's basically guaranteeing, uh, you know, more intensity out of the U.S. team today, which it has to be
I mean, if you're gonna
better. It
if
can't
you're
get
gonna
any worse.
if you're gonna be like Weston McKinney and just literally make a bad pass, I want you sprinting to try to win it back.
Yeah,
Trent's not a good example, but like when Man City lose the ball, you want to play like Man City. When they lose the ball, they run to get it back. I didn't see any of
right.
that either. We were just standing
Yeah,
around, just kind of waiting for Matt
yeah.
Turner to make a save, or
Mhm.
wonder if like the center backs can kind of bail you out. So you mentioned
Yeah, and
passion.
they can't. I mean,
I
they
want to at
can't either.
least see that. I want to see more running.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Let's make some. Let's make some runs out of our wingers like Japan did. You might not get the ball, and you might be tired, but like you're playing for the USA. If that doesn't motivate you to run and play hard, then I don't know what will.
well,
Money, I got like
it,
more. I don't know.
I mean, one thing I'll say is drop the 4-3-3. To be honest, I mean, it's not easy to necessarily do something different with literally one game remaining, but a four two
Mm.
three one with a 10 is so much better. If you want to play P5, if you want to play Jesus Ferreira so much, play him as the 10. Play him with a striker ahead of
Mm.
him.
Yeah,
Even though
for his pace.
Pulisic's probably better, Aaronson's probably better, Gio's probably better, but that you probably get more out of those guys playing with a 10, to be honest.
Yeah,
And
and
I
you
think
still get the
with
speed of
Weah
Aronson out
with
wide.
Weah you'll still have some width. Pivok
Weah.
can make. Sargent's actually pretty good running off the ball as well because we didn't have any of that either. We didn't have any kind of running off the ball, so I want to see
Mhm.
that too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Ooh, it was just bad. I mean, they need to do a lot of they need to do a lot of things better, and they need to change a lot. Hopefully they will. I think they'll be better. I really do. I think they. You can't have you can't be much worse, and you can't have
Truly, yeah, it
lower
can't be.
intensity. Honestly, so it should be better. But we'll see, man. It you
And
know.
we kind of mentioned it when we were doing a podcast with Alex and Jeremy, like I guess a year or two ago, that Berhalter had a lot of like Ollie in him. Like whenever he would have a bad game or bad like stretch of results, he would always kind of bounce back at the right time. So
Yeah,
this would be a good time to do that as well. So
yeah. Especially because
we'll see.
like we're not going to see him play till the World Cup after this,
Yeah.
unless they do that. A friendly right before, right? Are there October? Is there an October window?
Nope.
International
This is the
window?
last one.
No,
Like you mentioned, not having any kind of. I imagine we'll try to get some kind of scrimmage in. I can't imagine
I
us
hope
not to.
so. Gosh,
But
yeah, I hope we do. Mm.
anyways, that's the U.S. rundown. I guess we'll call our show call that. Um,
Oof.
we still have a little time to kind of play with, so we'll do a little Nations League talk. I think the main storylines was England was relegated, France was nearly relegated. France were not necessarily that great, and
Mhm.
Costa Rica. And depending on what happens today between Portugal and Spain, one of them, Italy and Netherlands are the teams to advance in the Group A next stage. So they'll be, I don't know if it would be the semifinals, I guess the quarterfinals. No, it would be the
Mm.
semifinals. So I guess that would be after the World Cup. I can't imagine. Yeah, there's no other international
Yeah,
break
it has to
after
be
that.
out. Yeah.
So that'll probably be, I
Hmm.
guess, in March, the semifinals. And Wha I feel like the team to maybe get started off for first is France. Um, this is a team that I think everyone has as favorites or close to be repeat winners. And when you see the names on what they can play with, or when you see the second team they can play with, if you're playing on FIFA and you like do like a draft team, you can maybe play with a third team
Yeah.
that's fun too. You can
Yeah.
understand why, but they are not in good form going into this. And I think I don't know. I kind of had my concerns with Deschamps. A theme I'm
Yeah.
maybe going to get into is a number of these teams have a coach that I think they could have dropped a cycle ago, and it would have been better to kind of go in with someone new. Obviously,
Mhm.
had you done that, you probably would have Zidane right now. Um, but he's picking, he's making weird lineups. You don't have Benzema, so I understand Jared playing, but I do not understand. Do not understand Griezmann playing over Nkunku. That was a bit bizarre to me. And
Mhm.
France are missing Kanate Kunde. Actually, ended up having an injury, had to go off. No Benzema, and I think they're missing Pogba. And he's
Yeah.
tried to, in at least in the Denmark game, it seemed like he was asking Camavinga to kind of be like Pogba, and Camavinga's not that player at the moment. He's not nearly as good on the ball. Frankly, I think Camavinga might have actually I don't want to say played himself out of the squad, but maybe played himself out of contention to the start when
Or
they
yeah.
do get into Qatar. And I was thinking they were missing Taylor Hernandez because he tried playing Mendy at wing back instead. I just don't think that worked either. So, what are your thoughts
Yeah.
on France?
I mean, they're kind of roller coastery. If you look at their two Nations League games, they
Mhm.
won 2-0 and then lost 2-0. So like, I mean, is it? I don't know what it's down to. I don't know if it's down to like Deschamps, squad selections because he did change things up. Like Upamecano started the Denmark game and he didn't start, the earlier game.
He didn't look good
Pavard
either.
played as a wing back. No, he didn't look good at all. Tugamini, not bad though. I think. But Griezmann, yeah, and Giroud, it's just weird. And I guess that they've stuck with Deschamps so long because he did win the World Cup. Wait, did he win the World Cup or the
Yeah,
Euros?
yeah, he won.
World Cup. Who
Won
won?
the
Who won Euros?
won the World Cup and Italy, Mancini. So like
Oh, that's right,
what
Italy.
happened with the champs is France were the heavy favorite going into Euros, and I think they got knocked out by Switzerland because I think Mbappe missed the PK. Uh,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
but what happened after that is they immediately rebounded and won the Nations League.
Oh, okay.
They beat like France and maybe like Belgium or whatever to win the Nations League, and like that immediately got everyone being like, oh, we can get back on the France hype train again, and
Mhm.
just they just they France weren't the only one. I mean, Germany had a weird Nations League as well. Like a lot of these,
Yeah,
maybe it was just too much to
maybe.
do a heavy competition during all of this because a lot of teams did not perform well. So
Yeah, they really didn't.
maybe there's some of
And
that.
it's a lot of like up and down form too, out of these teams. Like, yeah, like Germany lost to Hungary 1-0, and then they scored three against England, and still, just draw. So yeah, it's really weird. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if this is like do some of these teams even care at this point about the Nations League with the World Cup coming up? Are they just testing lineups, or are they actually like, this is my World Cup squad, let's get them to play together? In the case of France, I don't think this is the World Cup squad like entirely. They are missing like some people, but it's a lot of players that are going to play in the World Cup for sure, and it's a streaky team, which is, it's weird to say. I don't know how they're going to perform. I really don't. It's going to probably vary from game to game too,
It's
which is
very
weird to say, but
I, I don't want to say Ali again, but it's very similar to like Manchester United with Ali, where like it's individual focused. Like Mbappe,
mm,
do something creative all by yourself.
mhm,
When Pogba was playing, kind of the same thing. I think they're missing
mhm.
Pogba a lot. Pogba was amazing for them in Euros. People maybe forget about that.
Yeah,
And
he was good. Yeah.
forget what he did at Manchester United when when Pogba's played for France. He's been special. You
Do
also
you know why yours didn't play in either one of these games? They had Areola and Mandanda, and
ooh
which is
oh
weird.
the guy for AC
Yeah,
Milan.
because because I thought yours would definitely be
Is he
the starter in goal.
is he retired? Oh,
I didn't think so.
I
Is
didn't know
he?
about that. Interesting.
Yeah, he wasn't even on the bench for those two games. I'm gonna look. You keep going, and I'll see
Well,
if he is retired from
well, I
international
actually
soccer.
watched the Denmark game live. NFL, people can have that. Washington was also getting destroyed by Philly. So that was why too. Uh, France was terrible on any kind of corner kick, any kind of set piece, and I think Areola wasn't coming out. So that
Hmm.
was. I didn't even think about that, but that is interesting as well. Um,
Okay, apparently Lloris is hurt, and that's why. He
oh, he
could
might
miss
miss
the
the
Arsenal game too.
Arsenal game. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm reading about. I'm trying to find what like I can't see what happened, but yeah, it looks like he probably will at least miss the Arsenal game. So he'll probably be back for the World Cup.
Hmm.
But okay, so
Okay.
that's why he was hurt. So all right, makes sense.
And he might even be their captain, to be honest. So
I think he was, wasn't he? Yeah,
I can't imagine him being dropped. Um,
yeah,
let's I don't know how might have spent a little time on France, but France are an interesting team. All right, not that bad.
yeah. They are.
Let's move on to England because this is going to be fun too. So they lose 1-0 to Italy. Uh, frankly, it, it's not that interesting that England lost to Italy in the Euro final as well. But this did not have Verratti, did not have
Mhm,
Chiesa and Locatelli. I think it was a weakened Italy side. I mean, the guy that got the goal was Raspadori. I
mhm,
don't even know if he starts for Napoli. But I mean, that was and the way that they played was very uninspiring. It
mhm,
seemed like I don't want to say it's Tuchel ball, but it's very defensive first. And once they went down a goal, then Southgate made some changes and tried to get a spark that way. He brought Grealish on. Grealish actually looked pretty good, and then Grealish got like a stupid yellow, by either arguing at the ref or like doing some kind of like doing something stupid with the ball after like the whistle had gone, and so that's the
mhm.
reason why he wasn't able to play versus Germany, and that ended up showing up. I think. I mean, Grealish, he might have Southgate might have gone into that game wanting to play with Grealish, but the second game was 3-3 to Germany and they were losing 2-0 in the 68th minute. And then again, Southgate made changes, brought Saka on and Mason Mount on, and they looked so much better
They did,
than what they
yeah.
were doing. And so
Mhm,
one thing that I'm noticing is Southgate is capable of making changes now. He wasn't in the Euro final. That was a big issue with him. I
Mm,
remember he didn't make a change until like maybe the 85th minute or so, and it might have been like Henderson for someone. Uh,
right.
so
Yeah, I
at
think it
least he's
was.
kind of learned to do that. But I think he's doing it now, not proactively. He's doing it when they're losing. So we'll kind
Yeah.
of get started with that. What are your first thoughts of England, or what are your concerns of England? Like a lot of people have them, maybe with France as a favorite. Do you?
I don't think so, and they haven't won a game in the Nations League, which is really concerning.
Hmm.
Maguire yesterday too wasn't great. He gave up the PK, and he also had a turnover that led to I believe it was the third goal for Germany.
The habits
So
goal.
he wasn't
Yep.
great.
Hmm.
Stones got hurt too, so I don't know how hurt he's going to be. I don't know, man. I'm worried about the defense. The offense hasn't. I mean, they were there for the Germany game, but the offense hasn't necessarily been there either. And I don't know. Maybe it's just a case of just picking the right players because it is a talented team and the bench is talented too. You got a lot of good players, so maybe it's just Southgate needs to pick the right players for the way he wants to play. Um, but like we're just not seeing any consistency with them either. And I mean, I think part of the reason why they're favored is because they did do well in the World Cup. They did really well, but some of the players that they relied on for like Euros and things like that just aren't playing well. I mean,
Maguire
like Dele Alli
especially.
was a yeah, Maguire Dele Alli was a huge part, and he's not even on the squad anymore. So I don't know. It seems like they do have a lot of really talented players, but I don't think Southgate can kind of get the lineup to where they're maximum efficient. And I mean, he's just maybe tinkering too much, maybe not tinkering enough in some of these games. I don't know, but they're another team that is just I don't know what kind of team's going to show up, but they have the ability to make a sub or two. Like we saw Saka and Mount come on and it changed the game. So I don't know. Maybe they start and they start the game brighter. But I mean, I think my big concern is the defense. I don't think anytime you have Maguire back there, Maguire, Dyer, and Stones, pretty slow back three. I know you have like Shaw, James, you have Rice and Bellingham, but that's a really slow back three.
Hmm.
I mean, you could put Walker in there. I don't know. I have concerns about the defense more than anything, but they're also not scoring that much. But I think they do have players, talented
Before
enough players to
before
score.
yesterday, they hadn't scored an open play goal. In in
Yeah,
in
and
this Nations League
they
thing.
lost to Hungary 4-0 too, in June. So I mean they lost to Hungary 1-0 earlier too. So a aggregate score of 5-0 to Hungary, you can't score a goal with all the talent that England has. It's concerning.
I think you hit it exactly on when it comes to the selections. Selections are maddening to me. I mean, obviously, Liverpool fan. I kind of want to see Trent at least get some kind of call up, at least play
Mhm.
a little bit. He doesn't play a wing back role for Liverpool, but at the same time, he does. He's been playing this hybrid role. He could give you some creativity playing inverted or doing something in midfield. Because what I see is just it, the way he plays is ugh. You play with a back three, and you're playing with Maguire. I think it's all done to protect Maguire, to be honest. You play with a back three, and then you're playing with two defensive midfielders. You have Rice, who's not really progressive with his passing. He can dribble upfield a little bit, and this time he did it with Bellingham, but it's been Calvin Phillips before. So it's defensive guys. It's not necessarily creative attacking midfielders. And so what that does is all your creation has to come from the wingbacks, or it has to come from getting the ball up top and then either doing a counter with like Sterling and trying to maybe find Kane. It's not progressive.
Yeah.
It's not being
Well,
on the front foot essentially. And like
and to your point, like if you're going to play that way, it's perfect for Trent Alexander to come in, right? Like that'd be perfect for him as an attacking fullback. That's what he does.
well, he's doing this weird thing with Kyle Walker, this worked for him in the World Cup and I guess in Euros. Kyle Walker as the right center back. Kyle Walker is a right center back because he has good pace.
Mm.
Walker himself, defensively in 1v1 situations, when he's not tracking back, in 1v1 situations, when he has to mark people, I do not think he's necessarily that great a defender, at least in that spot. I would rather play Ben White, to be honest. Or I would play Reece James there, who has shown, we saw
Mhm.
over Spurs, he can play right center back, and you could play Trent, and you could maybe even kind of do an interchange, overlap on that side.
Yeah,
but
that
you
could
had
work.
2 years to see if that would work, and you haven't done it. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just Southgate being stubborn, I guess, to be
Uh,
honest,
Another thing too is like Brentford fans are mad. I know like Jeremy's
and they should
mad.
be.
I'm mad, and yeah, I mean he called up Tony, didn't even use him. I mean we know about Kane. Obviously he's a starter, but what we don't know is backup to Kane.
And the
And this
game,
was a perfect chance. It's a
and the
guy in form too. Why
and,
did you call him up if you're not going to play him?
and the game versus Germany did not matter. You already got relegated,
Hmm.
so why not? I mean, you didn't even put him on the roster for Italy, for
Yeah,
some reason.
I don't get it at all.
But I
Yeah, I
mean,
don't understand.
you're down, 2 goals. Why not? Like you said, you know what Kane can do. Why not give Tony 20 minutes to kind of just at least get him a cap? I don't think they've gotten him a
Yeah.
cap yet, so he could maybe
No,
leave.
eh, he's a Kane-esque kind of player too. He's very good in the air. He can hold up the ball. He's big. They need a backup striker. Yeah, it would be perfect for him. I don't know why he wasn't even on the roster for the first game and then just sat on the bench for the second game. Yeah, it was maddening.
And like another thing too, versus Italy. So I mentioned how every game is a back three or slash five, with wing
Hmm.
backs. He played Saka at left wing back. So like
Yeah.
you've got you've got a 26-man roster and you've picked 12 defenders, and you're not even playing a defender at the left wing back. And you have Chilwell to play. You have Trippier to play. You're playing Saka. Saka did not have a good game, and I think maybe he was
Hmm.
punished. That's the reason why he didn't start, versus
Maybe.
Germany. Saka came on and he came out like a cannon. To be fair to him, so
Uh
maybe
huh.
maybe he needed minutes. Saka looked really good
He did.
versus
Well,
Germany when he
and he
came
hasn't
on.
played left wing back for a long time. He's been playing, right wing this season. So yeah, why would you do that? Like, I don't get it. And then he's in trouble. Like he's in the doghouse for it. But you made him play a position that he hasn't played in a while, and he didn't do well. That's not necessarily on him. You don't have a lot of time to necessarily like, you know, practice playing like left wing back when at Arsenal you've been playing right back or right wing this season. So yeah, that doesn't make sense either. A lot of weird selection issues for Southgate, and it's been like that. I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. There've been a couple times where he actually has kind of changed formations. He did go to a back four, and I think he actually played with a 10, in that second half for Italy. Uh, but yeah, it just seems every game he goes into, we're going to defend first and maybe try to hit you on the counter. So we'll let you have 60% of the ball. We'll let basically Germany play us off the park in Wembley in our own stadium when we're supposed to be a World Cup favorite. I do not see that working out. So
Mhm.
I think you agree. Um, I mean,
Yep.
to kind of touch on England, touch on Germany. They're kind of hit and miss too. I mean, they were flying under Flick until this round of Nations League, but they lost 1-0 to Hungary, and this draw versus England is kind of it's shady. I mean, they were winning 2-0, and then Flick made some changes as well. Brought on Gnabry. Gnabry was not good, but it's 3-0 because of a uh, not Pickford, Pope spill. Um,
Oh, right. That was bad. Really bad.
So, what are your thoughts on Germany going in? Because I think a lot of people before this last round, or at least before June, had Germany maybe as a top three contender. To be honest, because they were like again, they were doing very well. They did very well in qualifying, at least.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I think you talked about it earlier too in the show. Is they're really missing Rudiger. I think
Yes.
it's potentially completely changed if it's Rudiger and Sula instead of Schlotterbeck and Sula.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing too. But they're another team. Havertz actually did pretty well
Hmm.
in the England game, but before that, it's just kind of like I don't know who's their striker. Is it Werner? Is Thomas Muller playing there? Is it Havertz? We don't really know. And then I think Sane and Gnabry are both just kind of like very mercurial players. Sometimes they're really good, and then sometimes they're non-existent. So that's always
It's a
like
good way to put it.
weird. You don't necessarily know what you're gonna get. They have some young players. Musiala is a young one.
He looked really
I don't
good.
know. He did. Yeah, he's one for the future for sure. I mean, I just look at the team. They got a lot of good players, but I don't know who's going to consistently put in the goals for him. Maybe it's Havard building off the 2 goal he scored against England. Maybe it's him. Maybe it's Mueller. I don't know. But I think they're probably I don't want to say favorite, but they're definitely like top 10 to win.
Yeah,
But
I
they're
would
just
I would say that.
they've been inconsistent too. I don't get it. Maybe it's striker, or maybe they need Neuer in goal. Although Ter Stegen made
Just
some
was good.
really good saves.
Yeah,
Yeah, he made some really good saves. So
yeah. We got
I don't
on.
know. I also Rom. I don't know how he is at left back either. So
Mm,
I have questions for them too. I think like they're more complete teams out there. Maybe Argentina, like you mentioned, Brazil. So, but they're going to be good. Germany, I think.
Yeah, it's not good when you like. I want to. I kind of want to echo your thoughts. It almost seems like however far Germany will go will be how far Timo Werner and Havertz take them. To be honest, because they're going to see a
Yeah.
lot of the ball, especially if you don't have Karim Adeyemi of Dortmund able to go. You need Werner is like the only guy that actually offers some runs in behind because
Mhm.
that was what Germany were missing in that first half. And then Werner came on in the second
Mhm.
half. Germany was so much better, and that's the reason why. Um,
Mhm.
so you need there's so much that's so important to get runs in behind, and you can either do it by wingbacks or you can sometimes do it by wingers. You can do it with a false nine, kind of doing it, but that's what you need. Some teams kind of just don't do that, like the U.S.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
and one thing I wanted to kind of mention is it almost feels like this would be I would not be surprised at least if this is a tournament Havertz wakes up.
Mm,
Uh he's going to be away from Chelsea, maybe that'll just be good for him. To be honest,
yeah,
he moved at such a young age. I think we kind of forget about that. He's been played in this weird Tuchel like formation. Flick doesn't play that way. It's possible we could actually see him blossom this tournament. And
yeah.
if he has like a player of the tournament type of season, I would not be surprised to be honest. I think I
Well,
a lot of
it's
people
a good
don't rate
point.
him. I do.
Well, yeah, before he went to to Chelsea, he was getting, regular starts, regular playing time, and he was an amazing player for Leverkusen. And then, he comes to Chelsea and he's not playing every game, and you kind of see a little bit of confidence fade. So that's a good point. If he can get more playing time, and he's hopefully got some confidence coming off the two scores against England yesterday. Yeah, he could be the player we saw at Leverkusen, and he was ridiculously good at Leverkusen at a young age. So that's a good shout, Ben. I like that. I was kind of thinking maybe the same thing with Werner, if he can
Hmm.
kind of, because he, went to Chelsea, didn't do much. He's back in the Bundesliga playing, regularly. Maybe he can find some sort of form too. If those two get going, then my outlook on the Germany team is completely different, honestly. Especially with like Rudiger back in defense and things like that.
I mean, it's just the way he was able to link up. He was I mean, Germany were past like good Gunnigan or Kimmich were just beaming balls to him, and he was able to just collect it with a feather touch. I really like when I see that because that just means you're
Mm.
calm on the pitch, if nothing
Scored some
else.
good goals, and he scored some bangers for Leverkusen too. I remember like watching some of those goals, like thinking, "Wow, this kid is going to be really good."
At Leverkusen, he was played as a second striker. He wasn't played as like
Mhm.
the lead man, which is another thing
Right,
too. And like the
he's
international game,
Mueller-ish.
we'll kind of get into this later. The international game is different than club. Like you can maybe get away with doing stuff like that. You don't necessarily have to own possession. Essentially, you just have to make your
Right.
spaces count.
Yeah.
I think he's good at finding space for himself. Um,
Mhm.
let's see how we're doing. Beautiful. All right. This is a team I really want to talk about because this is my fun team. But after them beating France, I think everyone's going to be talking about them, so this isn't nearly as much fun. But let's talk about Denmark. Um, they did lose 2-1 to Croatia, but they did bounce back and beat France 2-0. And because of that Croatia loss, they're not going to advance, for the semifinals. But
Mhm.
Denmark under what's his name, Hyman.
Mhm.
I think I'm so bad at names.
I don't know. Let
Under
me.
their manager, Hyman, we'll go with that. Have been really good. Um,
Hajulman? Yeah,
I think
Hajulman, something like
I think
that.
I'm right here. Um,
Yeah.
I'll just go with that. But they have been very good under this guy, and they didn't get a semifinal in last years or in the Euros by accident, and they did that without Ericsson, and now Ericsson is back, and so the point I want to say is a lot of teams look at Belgium as maybe a carry job for Kevin De Bruyne, where they think if someone's going to be a player of the tournament, they have to carry maybe a less talented team across the line. They're looking at Kevin De Bruyne being that player. I see Ericsson being that player for Denmark, and
Yeah.
I actually again I watched the game live between Denmark and France. You had Chouameni out there. You had Mbappe out there on the pitch. Eriksson was the best player on the pitch for both teams. He was
Mhm.
amazing, and he was bossing Chouameni around. So,
Mm.
what do you think of Denmark's chances?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely a dark horse in my book. And having Ericsson is huge because, before that, in some of these big tournaments, they kind of relied on Dahlberg and Damsgaard.
Mhm.
I mean, Damsgaard had that goal that beat England. Dahlberg, when healthy, can score in bunches. He scored against France. So now you don't have to rely on those two players as much. You have Ericsson. So it frees up a little bit more, you know, just more players for the opposing team to worry about. And then you have Hoiberg and Delaney, which kind of solidify the midfield defensively. Lets Eriksson go up and kind of pick out those passes. They have willing runners too, and Dolberg and Damsgaard. And their defense isn't bad. They have Anderson, who's been playing really well in the Premier League. He's at Palace now after moving from Fulham.
Mhm.
Mail too is playing in
Mela
the
is
Bundesliga, so
very good.
Mela. Yeah, he's been playing really well. So yeah, this team's I mean, I feel bad calling them a dark horse, honestly, because
I don't,
we know
which
we
is
know
kind of
they're
funny.
good though. Like
Yeah.
maybe they're not a dark horse because we know how good they are. But yeah, I think that I would still put them in the dark horse category just because the casual fan might not really think they're good, but man, they are good. They're going to be dangerous.
I mean, one thing that I've definitely noticed is I kind of mentioned it before. Some European teams, you definitely think of England, or maybe even I wouldn't say Spain. England would be a good example. When they play like that kind of like double pivot in midfield, if their passing patterns can be so bad. It's very side to side. It's not very adventurous. With
Mm.
Ericsson kind of playing in this deeper role, and you saw him play in the same way he's been doing for United. Oh, he was so good at picking out passes, and
Oh yeah,
in a weird way. I mean, well, another thing we could say, it's just amazing he's able to play. Because
yeah,
we mentioned
yeah.
the Euros. This whole thing started off with, him possibly losing his life in a very traumatic way, and it was amazing how that team was able to pick themselves up and do well in Euros. But in
Mhm.
a very weird way, that's been a positive for them because they got to see Damsgaard kind of play in a more advanced role than maybe they were expecting. And Damsgaard's grown
Mm.
into a really good player, and we haven't seen it for Brentford yet. But
Yeah.
Damsgaard had a very, very good assist for that first goal.
Hmm.
You
He
saw him
did.
get the
Yeah.
ball out wide, a very good touch, and had a very good cross in. Denmark to me
Mm.
is a legit team. I don't consider them a dark horse. I consider them top five, top three
Yeah. Yeah,
because
I would agree. Yeah, they're not a dark horse because
they
they're too good.
press like a club team. They're not. They're coached. They're very, very well coached. People maybe just
Yeah.
don't aren't expecting. I think Denmark's going to surprise some people.
They have some decent bench players too. Kajer, he might not necessarily. He's like a fringe starter. Jensen from Brentford as well.
Hmm.
So and then yeah, I mean, I think we will see more Damsgaard leading up to the World Cup for Brentford. Because he did play well against France. So hopefully see a little bit more of him too. He's starting to like come off the bench more, starting some like cup games for Brentford. But I do think we'll see more of him, and getting him playing time will that'll just help this Denmark team come World Cup time. Honestly.
It's kind of like I feel bad for Denmark a little bit because they played France twice in Nations League, and lo and behold, they have to do it again in World Cup. So
Yeah.
that's not really fair for them, and they've probably
But
pissed
beat
off
him beat him twice, so
they've probably pissed off France after all of that. Um,
yeah.
but either way, I think even if they get second, I think they could still advance. Just as long as nothing, knock on wood, nothing happens to Ericsson or yeah,
Yeah,
definitely, yeah,
because you would think they would beat Tunisia and Australia for sure.
mhm.
But it is with France, like, I know they beat them twice, but it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in basically a year. But still, if you beat who you're supposed to beat, that's 6 points. That should get you second in the group, you would think.
I'm gonna have a theme that I'll hit on later. That a lot of these coaches that I've kind of talked down, I'm gonna have faith that they're going to make bad lineups and they're gonna make bad tactical switches in games, and it's gonna cost. I think Deschamps it's gonna show up with him. Southgate will be another, and they're I think it'll happen with Enrique for Spain. So
Mm.
so we got
You
a couple
you
more to
then
talk.
real quick though, do you think that's like just those teams are good teams and they have a lot of good players? Is it like pressure on the coaches that kind of make them make these wrong decisions because they do feel like they have such a talented bench that they need to reshuffle the pack often?
There could be, I mentioned how there's maybe pressure with MLS, kind of like forcing, hey, play our guys. In Spain, maybe you have that with Barcelona and Madrid. In England, maybe you have that, hey, you must play our city guys. You must have that kind of pickup. There could be a lot of that. I remember like Jeremy was saying like the biggest problem with like Argentina when he's been like this big Messi fan for all these years is like the federation is like was so corrupt and incompetent, and they kept like hiring like you know the way that they were doing hiring process was just like, oh, we'll just kind of give it to like our friends. So there
Yeah.
could be a lot of that in the international game, to be honest, and maybe that's a good shout. I
Hmm.
don't personally
Yeah.
know of other
Sorry to
situations other than
derail you,
ours.
but
Yeah,
because they do expect those teams to do well. So there's a lot of pressure on those coaches. Especially when you do have if you're not playing well, you have bench players that can impact the game. You got to get those changes right, and if you don't, you're going to be questioning yourself.
and so well we kind of quickly go over Croatia. I do want to hit Belgium and Holland and Portugal and Spain. So we'll try to get through a couple more. Just I mean Croatia is able to advance over Denmark because of that win. Um, this is actually a team I was not really expecting to talk about or think about. But lo and behold, they were the finalists in 2018. They still have Modric playing and playing at an amazing level. To be honest, they
Mhm.
have their midfield could be Modric, Mateo Kovacic of Chelsea, and Miroslav Slavic, I think for Lazio, who now that name doesn't really jump out to people, but that guy's been linked to like a big European move for I want to say 5 years now. And
Yeah,
that's a very good midfield. And the guy who ended up scoring the game winner versus Denmark is Lavare Major, who I think is also a guy that could maybe is ready to make a big move. He's another young guy, but and someone that I really like. But what do you think? Real quickly, what do you think of Croatia?
well, it does kind of seem like a nice mix of youth and kind of older established players. Because you talked about Kovacic and Modric. They also have like Brozovic, Perisic.
Perisic.
But I don't. I mean, I'm not as high on them either. I know they did do really well in the 2018 World Cup, but Modric is playing well. But other than that, like a lot of their good players are older, which isn't a bad thing because you said they do have some youth um, too. So we'll see how I just feel like if the younger guys don't step up, maybe some of these guys are past their prime. Some of these older guys that are really good, usually maybe they're past their prime. I don't know, but they do have a good mix of
Yeah,
youth
I don't
and
recognize a striker.
established players.
That's kind of the only
Yeah,
issue.
no recognized striker. Yeah, they
Yeah,
have Vlasic.
because
He was kind of like a bit part player for West Ham last year, but
I think they would have had Mandzukic in 2018.
oh,
But
he was
they
and he
don't.
was good back then.
But they don't have him now. Actually, I
Hmm.
kind of misspoke. I mentioned this Mislav Slavic guy. He's on Serbia, so we're just gonna we'll go with Brozovic, like you said. That's still a good midfield.
Brozovic, yeah, my bad. Yeah, yeah, Brozovic.
Good,
And
good
I
job.
mean, their bench isn't that deep. They have they had Kramaric on the bench usually. So
Mhm.
Orsic though, maybe Orsic at striker. He's proven to score goals in the Champions League. So maybe Orsic kind of changes some things if you put him up top.
Hmm. All right, there you go.
Yeah,
There's someone
maybe.
at least.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wait, let me.
for them to get
Does he
through
play a lot?
them
I
to
don't think he
advance
plays that
them
much
to
though.
advance, I guess in the Nations League, that's showing you that they can play. I mean, just
Yeah.
but when you think of like the international game and how like packed in so many of these games are, like it's not open like club games are. It can be very
Mhm.
final third games. Like what can you do in the
Yeah,
final third? Someone like
that's true.
Modric is better than you think of like Modric and Kevin De Bruyne and Ericsson is all kind of the same kind of player who you want is someone that can just pick a lock. Maybe Neymar
Yeah,
as well.
definitely.
Um,
Namor. I mean,
so
they're going to be tough to play. They're another team that's going to be tough to play. I mean, recently, they drew France 1-1. They beat a good Denmark team. They beat a good France team again. Beat Denmark again, and then they beat Austria 3-1. So they're probably going to be another tough
and they
team.
won
A lot of these teams are like that,
and they won that group. So, I mean
and they want to, yeah,
that's just telling you how yeah.
a group with France and Denmark. Yeah, Pretty solid team.
And so let's we'll kind of cover Belgium. I want to get Belgium, Holland. Maybe we can do Portugal. Maybe we can do Spain. Because I don't know how long we're necessarily going. What are your thoughts of Belgium? Because I know you have Kevin De Bruyne, but do you think that's enough, or do you think they're maybe going to need a little bit more? And do you trust Martinez?
Man, I really want to trust Martinez because I do like him. I mean, I like him like as a I guess I do like him as a manager, but I just like him as a person too. But this is another team that they're a little streaky. They lost to Netherlands 1-0, and then they barely beat Wales 2-1. Oh, they were in control most of that game, but I mean, I would just expect them to step up a little bit more because we've been kind of saying, for Belgium, they have a good opportunity to do something, and if they don't do it now, maybe next Euros comes around and maybe they don't have some of these guys. So I do feel like it's kind of like a very much like now's our time. De Bruyne isn't getting any younger. Courtois isn't getting any younger.
Hazard as well.
And they do, yeah, Hazard. They have some older players. Witzel. I don't know. And then striker is an issue for them too. Lukaku isn't necessarily in form. They played Batshuayi against the Netherlands. It didn't really work out.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's another team that has selection issues, but they have good players. I mean, you have like Tielemans, Carrasco, Charles de Ketelaere. How do you say that guy's name? Charles de Ketelaere.
De Ketelaere.
Ket-
De
they
De
have
De
him.
Ketelaere.
Trossard. So like they have good players.
He
It's
should
it's
play. He
another.
should play Trossard a lot more than he does.
Yeah. He should. But it's just is he okay? Is the coach actually the coach?
It,
Is
it,
the coach
it was Harry Henry for this for the Holland game because like
how come?
he got like a red card or whatever, like being upset for
Oh,
rails. That was kind of funny.
okay, good. Okay, because I was like, wait, why is Henri the manager for the? Okay, cool. Um, but they also too. I mean, Alderweireld and Vertonghen are older and
Yeah,
they're slower and
the
at
back
the heart of your
the
defense.
back is not good to me. Yeah,
Mhm. So I mean, it's weird. A lot of the teams we're talking about, um, they have issues at center back and striker. USA is another one. Potentially, England's striker is fine, but defense is an issue. So yeah, it's kind of weird that we're seeing kind of
we're all seeing the
reoccurring
themes.
issues on different teams. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
And maybe one team that's not having those kind of issues, and this would have been a team that we would have like screamed about the coach. I think for Euros they had that guy that like ended up going to like Atlanta FC, and he ended up being like he had like lost every game. I
oh,
forget I forget his name now. He was at like Crystal Palace for like 9 games. They've replaced him
mm,
with Louis Van Gaal, and what an upgrade this has been. Because I don't even know if they've lost since doing that change. But he's kind of switched the formations to a back three system. He plays with a Virgil van Dijk, Timber, who's all three are really good on the ball, and Nathan Ake. So it's very good. It's very
mm,
hard to score on them. I mean, the wing backs. One's Danny Blend. That's kind of iffy to me. But the other is
yeah.
Dumfries of Inter, who's very good. And then I think we've kind of mentioned a couple guys that can maybe kind of introduce themselves to the world. Hey, hello, I'm good. I think Holland's got one of those players in Cody Gapka, who we've talked about a little bit before. But man, did he look good in this little Nations League run? Scored
Mm,
maybe scored 2 goals in this run, but he was able to play in the middle. He was able to play wing. He was very good in 1v1 situations. He had a good finish on
yeah.
him. What do you think of Holland?
Yeah, I mean, Gecko too has been just tearing it up for PSV, and I was really interested to see him going up against Arsenal because I think he would have torn things up against Arsenal too. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to. I would imagine they're going to be very good. They're also just fun to watch. I really like watching them play. They have some good bench players too. Veghorst, Gravenberch. You have Malacia too. Maybe Matthias de Ligt at center back can fill in. Maybe Ake needs a rest or something. I don't know, but
Hmm.
they look like a very good team, and they're always fun to like watch these Dutch teams. And I mean, for me, Gakpo is a huge part of watching them. that he's one of the players that makes him really fun. Dumfries is another one. I kind of wonder about striker. Um, they don't really have like a
It's very
number
reliant
10
on Memphis
they can
being
put on the
creative.
goals, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and
Um,
Memphis wasn't even
he got hurt.
in the Belgium game,
That
so
was one. Yeah, that was maybe the one like negative. Is actually that's another knock on Belgium. It was not the strongest Holland team because there was
it
no
wasn't.
Memphis and
Yeah,
no Frankie. Um,
yeah, no Frankie. Yeah, yeah, and I don't know about their keeper either. Pasveer kind of
that
looks
I
like the Witcher,
that I
and then
can't say.
Sillissen. Sillissen, I mean, he's been the Dutch keeper for a long time, but I don't know necessarily about him either. But they look a solid team. They're definitely fun to watch. So I'm going to be rooting for them, and not a dark horse either, right, Ben? Just too good to be
I
a
wouldn't
dark
call him a
horse.
dark horse. Mm-mm.
Same with Belgium at this point. Too good to be a dark horse,
Maybe I mean
right?
Belgium. Belgium, I think, are like number two in the world
Yeah, they're
rankings.
too good to be a dark horse.
Uh, well,
Dang, they're that high.
what kind
Wow.
of keep thinking? Try to think of your maybe five because I might ask that later if we have the
Ooh,
if we have the show. Like try to maybe
okay,
write them down because I've got mine.
I have to write that down.
I'm curious if you got yours. We'll move on to Portugal. Portugal have a very interesting game for Spain today. Maybe if you don't want to watch the U.S. Saudi Arabia, I want to say boy fest. Maybe Pulisic has like a
I
hat
hope
trick or something.
not.
Uh, Portugal Spain will be a very good, or maybe it will be after the game. But Portugal Spain will be a good game. Frankly, the only the nah. You look at their attacking, who they have for attackers. You look at who they have in midfield. Even at defense, they figured out the playing Pepe at like 38 years old anymore. They play Daniel Pereira and they have Ruben Diaz. And you look at who they have for wingbacks. You pick up Nuno Mendes. You had Nui Mati, who plays for like
I,
Napoli. All right, there you go. But Cancelo,
I could not pronounce that.
but Cancelo and Diego Dallo looked unreal in this other game. So you,
Yeah, scored
this
twice.
to me this comes down to the manager again. Portugal I thought were very poor in Euros, even though they went to advance to the knockouts, and I think they lost to like Belgium. But I was amazed that they stuck with this guy because this is another team where I think maybe kind of a change. Maybe if you had gone for like the sporting coach or whatever, you would be in a
Mm.
better situation because you look they don't really have a weakness. To be honest, like maybe sometimes Ronaldo and Jota don't necessarily work well together. But what do you think of Portugal?
Yeah, they're a dangerous team, and I think Liao will probably be more of a household name
Good shout.
after the World Cup.
Yeah.
I mean he's a great player, and he's at AC Milan now.
Mhm.
Maybe not necessarily a household name, although he is really good. But I think after this he will be. Question about like Ronaldo not starting, but he always seems to kind of show up for Portugal recently, at least. So yeah, not a lot of weaknesses again, Ben. Yeah, it's going to be the coach getting maybe subs right, getting the starting lineup right. Other than that, though, they look a pretty dangerous team. A lot of good players. Bernardo Silva's in there too. Carvalho's a really solid defensive midfielder for him too.
I mean,
So yeah, I think they got some things figured out.
he's starved for options at midfield. You got
Hmm.
Moutinho, Ruben Neves, that guy Mateo Nunez, who
Nunez,
could all
yeah.
kind of
Vitinha even.
Vitinha. Yeah.
Hmm.
I
And
mean, it's
Pedro Neto's there. I mean, you got
we haven't even
two good
mentioned Yao Felix.
goalkeepers. Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, we haven't even.
so it's
Nuno
like,
Tavares maybe is in form for Marseille too. Maybe he's on the World Cup squad. So yeah, a lot of depth too.
yeah, it's like we kind of mentioned like themes so far. I think uh, I think another theme is oh I just you look at the names on the roster, and you're like, how in the world did this team almost not qualify for the World Cup? Because they had to
Mm.
remember they had to go to the playoffs. Now it's
Yeah,
hard to
yeah,
qualify in Europe, but still, there was a little shock there. So it's like they don't always play well together. We didn't even mention Bruno Fernandes,
yeah, yeah. We have.
and Bruno, no, he's have his form with United is up in the air, but Bruno did look good at least in this last game that they played when they
Yeah,
won 4-0. But it was
in
against
Nations League too, they've only conceded two in 5 games. So if they can kind of keep that defense going in the World Cup, that's another team that's going to be hard to beat.
Hmm.
Because their defense is good, and we know now, like we know they have scoring options, but now their defense is good too. So that's a recipe for success. I feel like,
Well,
and it's going to be
the
tough, but
the more games that are like boxed in, because I keep talking about how like in the international game or at least in these tournaments, it can get slogged down, and it can be like a final third game. The way to
mm,
kind of beat boxes is to have really good wingback play or to have really good fullback play. And when you look at Portugal, they certainly don't struggle there.
mm,
So that could
yeah.
maybe something to watch. Let's quickly go to Spain, and then we can kind of we can maybe say a word about Serbia. But um, what do you? I mean, Spain are probably going to be a lot of people's favorites. This is another team that is just their form is just very wild. It's very hit and
Mm,
miss. Um, they were semifinals in Euros. They ended up losing to Italy, and I think because of Chiesa. And they I think they were semifinals in the, or maybe even finalists for the UEFA Nations League for this past one. So
mm,
the weird thing is they did not have a good qualifying too. They barely missed out on not being in a playoff. So
yeah.
what are your kind of thoughts on Spain?
Man, I mean, Spain's another one where they don't really have a striker.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know who, because in past years they've kind of tried to rely on Morata, and I don't think he's that great, honestly. But at times it's like, who else is going to play striker?
Murata's like their
It seems like they've
Havertz
However, yeah. It seems like they kind of play like a false nine
or
sometimes
Werner.
with Asensio in there. That doesn't necessarily work,
Mhm.
but you do have a lot of good players. You have potentially some growing pains because you have Pedri and Gavi, some young guys in there. But you do have you have older players, which might be a concern kind of if you're playing like Azpilicueta and Alba. They're older, so they're slower too, not as athletic as they once were, but they're good. They're smart players at least. So that's kind of like I don't know if that will hurt them or help them kind of thing. But yeah, I mean their form isn't solid enough for me to consider them a favorite. They're a really good team,
Mhm.
but they're another team that I just don't know who's going to show up. I mean they could they have the potential to score like they scored what? They scored 6 goals. Who did they score 6 goals? I can't find it now. They scored 4 goals on Georgia, but you know they do have the potential to score a lot of goals. But striker's an issue for him, and striker's an issue for a lot of teams. Like I don't know. They're just a streaky team. They're a good team, but they're streaky.
I mean, the only thing I can maybe say of Spain is to play them is going to require being able to run without the ball a lot. And
Hmm.
that can be draining. And maybe with the heat, the way things is, maybe the atmosphere and environment plays into their style. But again,
Hmm.
that will require them to basically win a lot of games like 1-0.
Yeah.
It's how they get those goals will be interesting. I look at them and I see a lack of dynamism. Is that it? Out wide.
Dynamism.
I
Yeah.
can't. I cannot say that word. I was trying last night, and I kept screwing up too. Uh, Someone like Foddy would maybe help out with this. And I don't know
Hmm.
if he's actually part of the squad or not. But watching Sarabia or watching Ferran Torres play out wide and try to do that to me doesn't really work. In Euros, they actually
P-
played Danny Ings.
Pino. Mhm.
Um,
Pino could be the answer though. Yeah, me
Pino.
Pino,
Ooh,
younger Villarreal
oh
player.
yeah, you like him?
Yeah, yeah. I wanted Arsenal to get him, so he could possibly be the answer. He's young, but I mean he's a really good winger, so maybe he's the answer. I don't know. I don't know.
Hmm. That would be a good shout. I mean, they need to do something different than what they did versus Switzerland. That was ugh.
That was
That,
not good.
that was not good. No,
But they scored 5 against Iceland in March, so they
I
do have
don't.
the potential to score. But yeah,
I don't count that.
those Murata scored a
Well,
couple,
I
and
shouldn't say that, but
yeah.
and I mean some other results. Um, let's see. Argentina won 3-0 over Honduras. Brazil 3-0 over Ghana. Bit of surprising, to be honest. I think Ghana can maybe be an interesting team at least in the group stage. But that was without Thomas Partey, which you might get into. I mean, Vinny and Neymar absolutely starred.
Mhm.
Then Mexico 1-0 over Peru. Not very inspiring. One shot on goal, I think, till like the 70th minute. Um, and I kind of mentioned how we haven't really talked about many African teams. A lot of people are probably going to think Senegal might be the one to advance. But you just look at the names, and Ghana is very interesting. Ghana's gone out and I don't want to say recruited, but they've gone out and picked a lot of dual nationals that you would
Mhm.
recognize. So they
Yeah.
have Tariq Lamptey now on their squad. Kudus, we talked about him with Ajax. Kudus is on their team. They have a very
Mhm.
exciting winger in France that I think people. I don't necessarily know if he'll fly in this tournament. I think within a year or two, because he's still young, people will know his name. In Kamaladin Sumana, he is amazing in 1v1s. And then
Mhm.
yeah, Thomas Partey, and Inaki Williams of Bilbao.
Mhm.
So at least the names are there. It's just can their coach put those pieces together? Because I think that's another thing too. All of these teams are filled with insanely talented players that you recognize, which makes sense. But it's not easy to always find the right combinations. So
Yeah.
kind of went long a little bit, but I did kind of tease it out a little bit. Who, in your opinion, are maybe the five that you look at to, and I'll say make a final, not necessarily win. I'll give a little leeway.
Make a final. Ooh. Well, I don't know. I was working on it a little bit. I don't know. Okay, so for me, I have Argentina as one.
Hmm.
I kind of think it's their time. Got a lot of good players. I'm going. Brazil is either two or three. I'm gonna go with two for them,
Hmm.
just because of the ridiculous players they have. Some of the players that don't make the squad, would be starters for a lot of other national teams. And then I'm going Netherlands three. Ben, I'm taking a cue out of you. I like them. I still have some questions about them. And then I'm going Belgium four, and then France five. I
Okay.
still think with all the talent that France has, I think there's obviously a potential for them to find a good rhythm and kind of run a hot streak, to the final.
And
And then
they,
there's some other teams like Denmark, maybe even Switzerland, kind of as a dark horse. Germany and
ooh,
England,
I like it.
they're
I like
kind of,
Switzerland. That's
yeah,
interesting.
they're kind of like maybe knocking on the door of the top five. Not quite there yet. I don't know. What's yours? Do
I mean,
you have yours?
well, I wasn't even thinking of that. It's possible that that game. We just talked about Spain kind of being down. It's possible we could look at that Switzerland win over Spain in 2 months' time as being a really good win. Uh,
Hmm.
to be honest, like Switzerland, Kanji is playing well for Ralph City.
Yeah,
Shakiri
he
is
is.
just Shakiri is like their Messi,
Hmm.
to not exaggerate a little bit. He always shows up for them, and Imbolo
Hmm.
is a very
Chocolate.
interesting
Oh,
striker.
Mbolo.
Yeah,
Yeah, good call. He's underrated. I would say.
I would agree. I don't really know what he
Mhm.
does for his club team, but whenever he plays for
Wh-
Switzerland, he looks really good.
He was at Mönchengladbach and was playing pretty well. I don't know if he's still there this year, but he was at Mönchengladbach and was a good player. And maybe Portugal too. We talked about how good they are. Maybe Portugal's pushing that top five too.
Hmm. I like that. I mean, I'm fully with you on the South American teams. You don't want to necessarily jinx it and say it could be Messi's time, but he finally has a keeper. He finally has. I feel like he has a pretty good defense behind him
Hmm.
with Martinez, to be honest, and
Yeah.
Acuna. Uh, and it seems he's got attackers. He's got Alvarez, Latura, and Martinez. Di Maria can still perform, and
Hmm.
in the midfield, it's not just him. Rodrigo de Paul, Paredes, even Alexis McAllister or Enzo Fernandez that I've talked about at
Yeah.
Benfica. Like it's not going to
Hmm.
be a carry job for him. It's
Right.
almost suit up to be. This team can actually help you get there. Just we'll give you the ball in the final third and basically do what you want to
Perfect.
do.
Yeah, it's perfect. Finally, he can kind of rely on others instead of the team relying on him
Hmm.
all those years. So yeah, it's a perfect situation for Messi. You think?
And then in a very similar way, you look at Brazil. Brazil are a little different because I don't necessarily trust Tite, their coach.
Hmm.
But that said, the only issue you maybe see as a weakness is at fullback. They were playing Eder Militao, at least for Ghana, and played Alex Telles, who and when he hasn't played, it's been like I don't want to say it's Danny Alves. There was a there was someone else that I saw that I didn't really rate that much. So
Hmm.
that is maybe an issue. But everywhere else, you look at and you don't see where Brazil would necessarily have an issue. I mean, Vinny and Neymar just alone, and then you also have
Mhm.
Richarlison or Rafinha. Just if they can get the ball into the final third, you imagine they're going to be able. Or I don't even know if Jesus is going to make the team, but you imagine maybe
I
he
know,
will.
yeah, it's crazy.
It's hard to not be high on Brazil because they can basically play with four or five attackers and have like Casemiro or have Fred or whoever in the back.
Akata, maybe too.
It's very there's a lot of reasons to be up on Brazil in a way that I haven't been in past tournaments. Yeah, I know
Mhm.
they're
And
always talked about as a favorite.
were you thinking about, at fullback Danilo or Renan Lodi maybe?
It might be Lodi.
Lodi,
I
yeah.
think Lodi is who I saw. Yeah,
Okay. He's at Nottingham Forest too, so
right.
weird.
Mhm.
Oh, you Gamara too, I forget about
Oh,
him.
I forgot about Bruno Granat. Yeah,
Anthony Rodrigo too, Firmino, obviously.
they
So,
should actually.
yeah, good team.
That would be a midfield I would play. I would play Casemiro and Bruno Guimaraes, but I don't know if
Hmm,
he'll actually do that. But
yeah.
you just another thing I want to kind of get out there is I kind of mentioned it before in the club game. Something I've kind of talked about with Jeremy is the number 10 has almost kind of disappeared because everything is about pressing, everything is about doing stuff when you don't have the ball, and a lot of tens don't really like doing that. They like being creative and being flashy. In the international game, I think they can still fly, and I think that'll maybe be something we see as a theme. I think we'll see a return of number tens. We talked about a return of
Mm,
number nines, maybe coming back. I think you'll see a return of number tens. Those creative guys that can find that have basically a free role in the attack. Maybe they don't have to necessarily press or do a lot of stuff to win the ball back. Um,
mhm.
I think we'll
Yeah,
see a lot of
some
them
refuse
show
to.
up. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, well, I watch a lot of Arsenal, obviously, and they kind of, they're number 10. They rely on Odegaard to kind of, be that creative spark. They do have, Shaka and Partey behind them that allows him to do that. But yeah, I think you will see the number 10 play more like that, especially like, if you look at Portugal. I don't think Bruno Fernandes is going to really track back and press that much, so he's going to have to be creative. And
Bruno would
there's a
be a
couple
really
other
good
players like that.
Bruno would
So
be a really good example where like
mhm,
he could look like what he was at Ollie, where the United players or fans could be like, where the hell has this guy been?
mhm,
Bruno would be a good shout for kind of the same idea.
yeah.
Yeah,
But he's not going to, do a lot of off the ball work per
right.
se. Not a lot of tracking back, but if you have the defensive midfield behind him set up, then he doesn't necessarily have to.
Because like you imagine, I don't know if the humidity is going to factor in or not, but it's possibly going to be a tournament where well, I mean, I guess every international tournament's kind of the same thing. It'll be what you do with with the few times that you have the ball in the final third. It won't necessarily
Mhm.
be try to press and create as many chances as possible. Just can you make your chances count?
Be how clinical you are, yeah.
Yeah. And
And
so
clinical with set piece deliveries and crosses and things like that too. So yeah, good
I
call.
think that's kind of mostly it. We mentioned we have the Manchester Derby, and well, I guess we'll have a nice little wake up call on Saturday for a tiny little game. Oh, only
Yeah, we
between
got
is it between like 1 and 3, 1 and 2? It's
1 and 3.
it is one
Yeah,
and
I
three.
think.
But if
Yeah, I think so. So
but a Spurs win, are they close enough in
gotta
points
get to bed early.
are they close enough in points to overtake?
I think they are. Yeah, I think they're what 2 points back. I
That
think.
yeah, I thought so. So it's like
I think they
it's
basically have two draws where Arsenal had wins. Or so yeah, I think they're like 2 points back.
in any other setting, this game would be talked about for like weeks on end.
I think so.
But
Yeah,
it's just kind of coming in at a weird time. But man, is that going to be a fun game to kind of look up and wake up to.
yeah.
Hopefully,
I have to go to bed early Friday.
Thomas Party will be able to play. I'm a little worried about the injury
Yeah,
scratch. Um,
yeah, me too. But I'm hearing Zinchenko, I think, is going to be back at least, and Odegaard. So some good news there. But yeah, I don't know about Partey.
that's good. And Saka again looked amazing. So maybe he'll come in with some kind of confidence that
Yeah, you could use him. I mean, he's picked it up a little bit. He's got a decent amount of assists, but we could use some goals from him for sure.
and Perisic kind of had a knock. I think for his 10 mark. I don't know if that's necessarily anything or not, but that could maybe be something to follow as well. He's been really important for Spurs,
Yeah.
in their form. That could maybe be something to follow. But All right. Sorry, Rex. Kind of we went long again, but kind of put you through it. But thank you again for joining. And I don't know, it's kind of fun to talk a little bit about the international game because we don't really
It
do it a
is.
ton. I wouldn't want to do it every week. I'll put it that way. But it's
Yeah.
good to kind of the break kind of came at a good time, and frankly, it seems we're going to have. I guess now till the World Cup, we're going to have club soccer to kind of talk about
Mhm.
Champions League
Yeah.
and Europa as well. So, um, do you have any closing thoughts or anything?
Well, I mean, just doing the show with you, talking about some of these teams that are going to be in the World Cup, I'm getting really excited for the World Cup.
Mhm.
It's weird that it's in November. Like, I still, don't necessarily like feel like it's coming up, just because I'm so used to it being in the summer. But doing the show, it's got me excited about watching some of these teams. They're going to be, I mean, I'm hoping they'll be fun to watch, and it will be a fun tournament. But like Netherlands. Brazil, Argentina. It's going to be fun. USA hope will do well. But yeah, this show has gotten me really excited for the World Cup. I'm excited for it, man. We're really close. We're a month and a half, 2 months away, so we're almost there.
We are. It's scary when you like hear like, oh, someone like has a hamstring or whatever. I think like they said that for Kunde, and it's like it could be a
Mm,
World Cup, and you hear that, and
could miss the World Cup.
you're like, whoa,
Yeah,
we are close.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, we are, and yeah, and also like well, I'm gonna be worried about club players getting hurt in the World Cup too.
that'll
That's
be
one
the
negative,
only.
I guess, because
We
it's the
are
middle of the friggin' year. But
Yeah, we are hyped up at least with that the World Cup is going to be. We get like all this like club football, and then we don't really get a break. We like, you know, it's a great time to just kind of
right on
turn
the
on the
international
TV and
stuff.
be right. Like I enjoy this international break in a way I would not expect just because of the World Cup being there. But like you said, the downside is I am significantly worried about a lot of injuries happening
Hmm.
very soon, just to overplay, and that
Yeah.
freaks me out a lot. I mean, so that would be the
Hmm.
downside to doing it this way.
Yeah, compacted schedule. There's going to be injuries, unfortunately, and
And it's going to be
it sucks.
stars. It's going to be people who are
Yeah,
making
there
us.
are. Yeah, it sucks, but I mean, it's the only way they could do everything, I guess. And then when the Queen passed away, it just compacted the schedule even more, unfortunately.
Oh, well, England kind of did that to themselves.
Yeah.
All right.
Save for
Well,
another time, though.
true. We won't go there. Maybe that's the reason why England got relegated. Just kidding. Uh,
Ooh.
well, I'll stop. I'll stop with all that. Anyways, man, appreciate it. And I guess with that said, you guys stay squatty.
Stay
And
squatty, people. That was fun.
there we go. I need to find a way to like do the editing and get some music in. So stop recording.
Yeah.